Nürburgring GP. Everyone being cautious, they know it's a long race. Still 21 laps to go. So we just started the race and already we're seeing so much action on track. Hello and welcome back to MotorMotion E-Series. It is the Player One Sim Gear GT3 Championship and it is Season 2 here in 2024 as we head to the third round of 10. It's Suzuka. We're back in Japan once again after a very, very wet round at Fuji for both Group A and Group B. Now it is time to go to the blessed lands that is Suzuka because this is a truly legendary circuit in the Mie Prefecture in Japan. Capacity 155,000 people. The FIA Grade 1 track is a staple of the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix, the FIM EWC, the GT World Challenge Asia, Super GT, Super Formula. Future will be a Suzuka 1,000 kilometers in 2025, and what a place with so much history. Legendary corners, Dunlop, the Casio Triangle, and that first corner where we saw championships be made and lost. Fate of the drivers in their own hands at this brilliant circuit. One of my personal favorites, and now we get to see the GT3 Championship take its turn once again in this fantastic place. The crowds are going wild. We're getting ready here in the commentary box to get things going. So let's get into our information and get things started. Back in the commentary box, once again, my name is George Cooke, and alongside me will be Nick Pautasso. And unfortunately, Andrew Scott, pit lane reporter, not with us today, but the return of the league administrator and our very good friend Jeff Bruin back in the commentary box doing our pit lane reporting. He'll be out there enjoying the crowd and potentially the beer as well. We shall see. But Nick, welcome back to the commentary box. It is round 3. Suzuka, what a place.
G'day George, g'day Jeff, g'day everyone at home tuning into the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel for round 3 of the MotorMotion E-Series GT3 Player 1 GT3 Championship. I'm very much looking forward to this track. I always said Fuji was one of my second favorite tracks. I don't know, I feel like Suzuka's like my third favorite track now. I think like the first 3 tracks we've been to, Bathurst, Fuji, and now Suzuka, are probably some of the 3 crucial tracks to get right in this championship because both of them are very committed. We saw some very fast racing at Bathurst. We saw some very strategic racing at Fuji. But now where we get to Suzuka, it's all about knowledge of the track. We need to make sure about when it comes to this track, it's all about nailing the sectors. The first sector through the S curve, Degner, the hairpin, spoon curve, and then the fastest corner on the track, 130R at turn 15. It's really going to make sure that this is very well known as a driver circuit. It's really all about these drivers getting to grips with the cars and getting to grips with this track because one mistake around here doesn't leave you much room for margin of safety. So it's all about getting these corners right and getting that hooked up lap to get yourself that ahead of your rival in the championship.
Of course, and being round 3, the first 3 circuits, just brilliant calendar that we've got here in Season 2 at MotorMotion E-Series for the GT3 Championship. And Interlagos next round, then at Road Atlanta, then we're heading to Willow Springs, then the Nordschleife, Red Bull Ring, Catalonia, and finishing off with Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, it is just so many exciting races. And Jeff, welcome in. You are a big part of deciding the calendar for this year. It's been so exciting so far. Suzuka's going to be brilliant. And there's just so much more in the calendar. It's just excellent.
Thanks, Shane. thanks for having me. This is an amazing circuit, and I am definitely, disappointed that I'm missing this. But I think, what we're going to see is some great racing here. This closes out our Oceania portion of the season, and all the drivers and the teams will then fly over to the Americas after this. Obviously, as you've stated, with Interlagos. But that being said, this is a fantastic circuit. Definitely one of my favourite, and I think what we're going to see here is some fantastic driving. And I know the teams have been getting that practice underway to bring out their best results.
Exactly right. So, of course, our sponsor is Player One Sim Gear for the GT3 Championship, sponsored last year for Season 1. So they're proudly sponsoring us again in 2024 for the second season, a season we hope to, a series we hope to continue long into the future. Of course, they're stocking the widest range of sim gear under one virtual roof in the Australian market. So please go and check out www.p1simgear.com.au. Support them as they support us to help bring us the broadcast and all the administration in the background for this fantastic series. And on that note, go to www.MotorMotionE-Series.wordpress.com for all your latest news, articles, sign-ups, and registrations for upcoming series, because there is a lot happening in the MotorMotion E-Series space. So yes, let's talk about today's race, Suzuka. It's round 3, 50-minute race as per usual. Time of day is afternoon. We've got a weather update coming for you soon, but we can tell you right now that there is no rain on the horizon, which is excellent. Hard tyres are mandatory for this round, and brake bias adjustable as always. Suzuka, what a place it is. Now, let me give you a few little statistics here, because it is 5.8 kilometers long. That's 3.6 miles, 18 quarters. The fastest lap record here is a 1 minute 30.983 by Lewis Hamilton in his Mercedes W10 in 2019. For those of you who don't know, he's a Formula One driver, but some fantastic lap records here and so much history at a circuit like this. And I'm surprised, Nick, that it's your third favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very technical track, because it's all about just getting these sections right. Like I mentioned, that first sector through the S curves is about there's only one line, but you need to make sure you get those lines perfect, because you need to be hitting every single apex, trying to carry as much speed as you can to nail that first sector. And then the Degner curves look easy on paper, but in a GT3 car with a lot of power and a lot of weight on these cars, it can't really take corners like we see with the Formula One cars that go through massive speeds through the Degner curves. And all the real-world drivers, they always say that Suzuka is one of the most fiercest and toughest tracks that they ever go to, because it's a driver's track. It's everything that you can think of with a driver that they want on a racetrack, Suzuka provides. It's in the Mie Prefecture in Japan. So, and it's really a great track. So yeah, I mean, it's up there as my favorite tracks, but I think so far what we've seen in this GT3 Championship, it's going to have to work its way up towards being the best, because the first 2 rounds have been no short than spectacular. So hopefully we'll see something similar in round 3.
I think so, yeah. It is a tricky place to overtake, but lots of opportunities to do it if you get the right line, if you get off the racing line, and hopefully wait for some of those mistakes. Here's your weather report. For now, it's cloudy, preset weather C05. Time of day, of course, is the afternoon, 21 degrees Celsius out there. All the races in the GT3 Championship based off the real weather. So it is, in fact, cloudy and overcast over there in the Mie Prefecture in Suzuka right now. That is how your weather rounds out for today. So slick tyres all the way through, and I think the drivers will be pretty pleased with that after what was a very complicated wet weather race at Fuji last time out. And a lot of people running afoul of the weather, so there'll be a few just keen to go out there and drive and do what they do best. Now let's look at Group A, because we'll be doing the Group A coverage first. That's the Elite category and the Pro category. And it is Gopi Mohinderjit for Diffusion Race Engineering. And this is the form that we've been waiting for Gopi to really show us in that Mercedes AMG. Takes pole position. He's done it with a bit of a margin as well with Diffusion Race Engineering. And that Mercedes and that driver combination is going to be a fierce combination for this race. Then it's Lewis Atkinson for Hoon Corp Esports in P2, an all-elite driver P1 to P6 at the moment. Then Matt Dernetti for CP Motorsports, continuing to go put one foot in front of the other in the correct order. Nick Pfaff in P4 for Asta Racing, then Dan Wood, P5 for Gridline Racing. Nathan Wakefield lines up in P6 for Black Rose Racing, so a few positions down on where he qualified P1 in Fuji. and ended up taking a fantastic victory there. Then Luke Stone lines up as our top pro in this category. He'll be followed on the fourth row of the grid by Jeremy Crow for Black Rose Racing. James Lee for Hooncorp Esports will be there in P9, followed by Glenn Mead for Gridline Racing. Then it is Chris Duncan for Lightning Motorsport, the elite driver not having a good day in qualifying, followed by Matt McCullum in P12 for CP Motorsports. Then it's Mick Hill for Hassel 1 Motorsports, and not where we expect to see the Hassel 1 guys, but we'll see what they can do in the race. P14 to Daniel McDonald for Diffusion Race Engineering, Drew Griffin in P15 for Astor Racing, and Campbell Knowles will line up in P16 for Hassel 1 Motorsport, the elite driver. So lots of points available today, I think, for the pro category. Let's have a couple of hot takes from you chaps. Jeff, let's go to you first. How did this qualifying line up for you?
What interests me is James Lee, who is the team owner of Black Rose Racing. I believe he's racing for Hooncorp Esports. So that's a bit of an interesting take here, and I'll be really intrigued to see how he goes during the race in the pro division.
Nick, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to see that we're finally, as you mentioned, we're finally seeing the true speed and potential of Gopi Mahendra. He's on pole position. We know he's had a tough start to this championship, in season 2 of the Player 1 GT3 Championship. He's had a really poor results at Bathurst due to some hardware technicalities, and then last time out at Fuji Speedway with the wrong strategy on the wrong compound of tyres, unfortunately put him well down the order. But now we get to see what he's like up the front. But keep an eye on that third row there. Dan Wood, the winner of round 1 at Bathurst, as well as Nathan Wakefield, who took an astonishing victory last time out at Fuji Speedway. Watch out for those drivers in fifth and sixth place to make their moves and hopefully work their way up towards the front. But also that pro pack, that what Jeff just mentioned, Jimmy Lee in the Hooncorp Esports Audi against his own driver in Jeremy Crow, just right behind him on the grid there. There might be a few little heads there that we've got a bit of a headbutting between the two. One that is the driver and one is the owner of the driver. So what's going to happen here, George, is if Jimmy hits the car, will that come out of the driver's pay? Or will Jimmy have to pay for his own damages? What does Hooncorp have to do to make sure that they take one of their cars out or doesn't give them any scratches? What's the deal here? Because I'm not so sure how it works in the managerial world.
Yeah,
well, Nick, may I also add that are there pseudo team orders here? So what happens if the Black Rose Racing car's in front of the Hooncorp Racing or vice versa? What actually transpires?
This is sticky political territory. I love it. This is great. Yeah, James Lee's got some interesting choices to make today. Does he keep the loyalty within his own team, or does he drive to his best of his ability for Hooncorp Esports and make that overtake? We shall see very soon. Qualifying all done, of course. Those were your results. Now we're going to head out on track and get Group A started. It's time for the Elite and Pro coverage. Thank you for your hot takes, gentlemen. Let us know in chat your predictions for today's race. Gopi Mahendra on pole, followed by Lewis Atkinson. Let's go out on track and get this race started. Okay, so a new overlay for us today. G-Shock down in the bottom left-hand corner. Gopi Mahendra will be leading us away for the rolling start. There are the lights. You can hear them in the background. And the number 2 car is all go, foot to the floor. It'll be followed by Lewis Atkinson. So no conflicts into the first corner today. A few cars trying to get out of the draft, find themselves a little bit of clean air to get into this first corner. It looks pretty smooth so far from all the competitors. Nick Pfaff already putting a little bit of pressure on that Lamborghini of CP Motorsports. That's Matt Dernetti in P3. And it's getting a little bit close between those two, but nothing has really happened so far in this race. A little bit of move there behind Jeremy Crow and Stone all going at it. So is James Lee. They're all fighting already. So this answers our question as to what James Lee's intentions are today. He's going to drive as hard as he can for Hooncorp Esports today, and he's going to put the pressure on his own drivers with a bit of a get on with it, guys. If you want to beat me, you've got to prove that your spot has been worth the payment that the team is making in your stead. Nice run. Here we go through the Degner 1. Such a tricky corner to get through, especially on these colder tyres at the beginning of the race. Second lap will obviously be a lot better for these drivers. Cloudy conditions not helping that whatsoever. In the background, a little bit of a push and shove going on between Warpig and OGR Toolshed. And there's going to be a little bit of a move down the inside line. Lightning Motorsports 369 trying it, but the Porsche holds the line beautifully around the outside. And that's going to be Mick Hill now in the box seat to try and make the overtake. Airborne is the driver for Hasselblad Motorsports, leading us at the back of the pack. Campbell Knowles, also in the NZ ERS Esports League as well. Good driver. We'll see what he can do today. But the pressure is all on. Lewis Atkinson right on the rear end of that Mercedes AMG of Gopi Mahindra. See how they go. 130R, such a tricky corner. A lot of curb being taken there by the Mercedes. We know it's good on its suspension, so it can definitely handle it.
Car in the background there, George, I can see that it's just looped it at the exit of Spoon Curve. I'm not so sure who that was, but if we'll have a look back to see who it is later on. It is Warpig for, I believe that is Lightning Motorsport. Yes, it is a Lightning Motorsports Audi R8 that has looped it at the exit of Spoon Curve. I do apologise there for the minor technicalities, but yeah, I was about to say it was a great even start by everyone. Looks really solid, really clean. Unfortunately there for Warpig, as we see Mahindra just drift through the first and second curve of turns 1 and 2, but still gets the advantage over Lewis Atkinson. But really nice start by everyone there, George. No, not too many big mistakes there, and I can see the first of the pit stoppers coming into the pit lane looking to get rid of those hard tyres, as I believe that is the mandatory tyre for round 3.
It certainly is, and we've had a few starting on a different tyre. Racing mediums is the choice at the beginning of the race for Gopi Mahindra. Yeah, he's looking a little bit here and there as he tries to get the tyres into the right zone. That is Chris Duncan, I believe, who is still lagging at the back. That's Warpig. So Chris Duncan for Lightning Motorsport having a few problems there. But yeah, they're throwing on the tyres, get them done one lap, get off of them. Not a bad strategy to be looking at here for the hard tyre, and they'll be wanting to take the racing mediums and the softs for as long as possible through this 50 minutes. Awkward line there and a bad run for Gopi Mahindra. This is going to be pretty much, well, it's not going to be an overtake just yet, but Lewis Atkinson is really putting on the pressure, and that Audi is actually looking really fired up really early in this race.
Yeah, the Audi looks to be switching on its tyres a lot sooner than the AMG Mercedes. It looks like it's able to take the corners a lot easier compared to the Mercedes. The Mercedes just has a little bit of natural understeer with the heavy front end of the front engine rear wheel drive, whilst compared to the Audi, which is a mid-engine rear-wheel drive, so it's able to hook into the corners a little bit sooner. Lacks a little bit of top end compared to the Mercedes, so that's where probably Gopi Mahindra is getting the advantages from compared to the Audi R8. But see if he actually throws it down the inside through to Casio. He doesn't, so he's going to stay behind there, but runs a little bit wide going onto the exit of Casio. Matt Donetti in the 51 right behind him, P3, still holding on to that P3 at the moment, but is losing time towards Lewis Atkinson and Gopi Mahindra. So the top 5 really running away with it. We're not seeing too much battling up and down the field there. They're all quite close quarters, but there's a lot of packs being broken up now. We can see on the mini-map, as it was very congested on the first opening lap. Now it seems to be very well spread up, obviously splitting the classes up respectively, but now the first of the leaders of the Pro class, Luke Stone in 6th place, so very good start there by the Lightning Motorsports Audi driver.
Yeah, and he's still ahead of Nathan Wakefield as well. Let's throw it down to Jeff Bruin. Jeff, we've seen one car so far start on the hard and throw it out after one lap. We've got a number of others who are still running the hards at this point. What do you think about optimal strategies here today?
Well, again, I would argue that I guess what we decide here at league headquarters is about making sure that tyres are fit for purpose in the round. And what we're seeing is people discarding tyres after that first race. So, you know, I guess strategy will come into play. I think the medium seems to be the tyre of choice, and we will probably see maybe a one-stopper here on mediums once discarding the hards.
Yeah, it does seem like they're going to get at least 20 minutes out of the medium tyre just based on the degradation we're seeing from some around. Nick Pfaff is one of those on the racing mediums. We'll check up on Dan Wood. He's still in tow for for Gridline Racing in behind this battle pack that we're watching right now. Maybe an opportunity for Nick Pfaff. Will he be brave and try it at 130R? Not necessarily the most sensible time to do it, but he's got an opportunity. Uses a lot of curb there. Will it be a send down the inside line? Here we go. Matt Donetti goes defensive.
Yeah, very strong pace there by the Porsche, just keeping up in the slipstream of the Lamborghini. Obviously, over the last couple of GT7 patches, the Lamborghini has been quite the strong MR car amongst the field of competitors here that we have with the Porsche 911, the Audi R8s. We did have the McLaren 650S, but no one's chosen that car for season 2024. But the Lamborghini was a bit of a surprise amongst the CP Motorsports camp to all of a sudden pick the car that no one ever thought that they would ever be picking to compete in the GT3 Championship. But over the last couple of updates in GT7, this car has been an absolute weapon, and around this track at Suzuka Circuit, watch for that car to switch its tires on pretty well. Once it switches its tires, you won't be seeing that. You won't be seeing the Lamborghini coming. You won't be able to chase that Lamborghini.
No, you certainly won't be. And it's on the hard tire at the moment. That's why he's got so much pressure from Nick Pfaff behind. He's on the medium, so there's already a tire differential between these two. And the fact that he's holding off a medium runner who's got all the pace in that Porsche right now is really impressive in the Lamborghini.
Yeah, absolutely. So even on the hard tires, it looks like it's holding onto its tire wear quite a fair bit. It's got a bit of wear compared to all the medium runners, but once the hards actually switch on, it will turn out to be a very strong car. So keep an eye on the 51 of Matt Donetti and CP Motorsports to close up on both Lewis Atkinson and Gopi Mahindra, who are still holding on to 1 and 2 at the moment, but they're not breaking away from each other. Looks like Gopi's just put a bit of a gap amongst himself and Lewis, a little bit of breathing room, but still keeping a nice gap. The only closest battle pack we're seeing is the battle for 3rd place.
That's right. Looking further down the field, Luke Stone in P6, followed by Nathan Wakefield in P7. And it is Glenn Mead here, the other Gridline Racing driver. So those two are having a good day out so far. Currently running in P5 and P8. So that's a really good effort by the Gridline Racing chaps right now. Then it's Jeremy Crowes under a lot of pressure from James Lee. So a little bit of movement down here at the bottom of the grid. And James Lee is just going for it.
Oh. Yeah, James Lee.
Oh, he's lost it.
Oh, wow.
And that is OGR Toolshed caught up in that as well. That's into the gravel trap very deep for James Lee. He just brushed the edge of that grass on the exit of 130R, and the car just did have nothing on the grip to hold on, and around he goes. And yeah, unfortunately for Toolshed and the number 43 Astra Racing car, that is also a big problem, and that'll be a pit stop for James Lee, because no doubt that car is banged up.
Yeah, that was very unlucky there for Jimmy Lee there. He was just trying to get back onto the racetrack. Obviously, you do get a little bit of leeway when it comes to getting off at 130R. You just get onto that tarmac, and then you just try to get it back onto the inside line going to Casio Triangle. But I think he just caught the curbing at the wrong place, wrong time. And unfortunately, that's where unfortunately with Drew Griffin, that was just wrong place, wrong time for the Astra Racing Porsche 911. So I believe that's twice he's been caught up in an incident. I believe he got caught up in an incident last time out at Fuji, and now that's the 2nd race in a row that he's been caught up in an incident. So it's not been the best Japanese leg for Drew Griffin in Astra Racing. But I was about to say that Jimmy Lee was about to make a move on his driver in the Black Rose Racing Mercedes through 130R, but then it was just a bit of aero wash coming off the Mercedes onto the Audi. It just must have escorted him wide coming through 130R.
Yeah, never fun to be in that situation, and I guess he's probably happier to have collided with Astra Racing than his own team. Oh, and that's Matt Donetti. He's lost it on the inside exit of Spoon, and he's lost the position. Great save, kept it out of the barrier, no damage, but damage to his overall race time and position in this race right now. It's Nathan Wakefield coming up on his rear. That's P5 now for Matt Donetti, and this just goes to show, you know, that Spoon curve is such a tricky place to get things right. When you're on the hard tire, there's just no grip there either.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe and the most important thing is as well, because it's such a cold track as well, the tires, they do heat up, but even though the tires are wearing, even worn tires around on a cold track don't really feel the best, especially through traction zones like Spoon curve. You're trying to get on the power as early as you can, just to try and get that straight line exit out of that corner to maximize through 130R. And I believe he just caught the back end of the curbing there, and he just may put a little bit too much throttle on his car, and then the rear end. And as we all know, with MR cars, the rear end always likes to snap on you all of a sudden, and the Lamborghini was always very well renowned for that. So I think he's just got a little bit of experience of what not to do in the Lamborghini.
That's right. So at the moment, we've got 2 Black Rose Racing cars in the top 10. We've got 2 Gridline Racing cars in the top 10. So there's 2 teams that are looking in a good shape at the moment in this race. And around the grid, everything is starting to split up just that little bit. We've had a few accidents, a few pit stoppers so far. A lot of mix of tyres out there at the moment, so we're going to throw it down to Jeff, get his take on things. Seen plenty of action in the pit lane. Thoughts so far?
Yes, we have obviously James Lee coming in and Drew Griffin coming in. Substantial work needing to be done by their pit crews to get those cars back out in a working order with a change of tyres as well. Unfortunate incident there. Again, we're as has been said, getting the hard tyres to ignite or get on point is been difficult, and I would anticipate we'll see those hard tyres being shed really quickly and moving on to the mediums.
Yes, we do have to report that Luke Stone, I believe I'm correct in saying this, is leading the pro category right now in this race. He's up there in P7 right now, ahead of Glenn Mead, ahead of Jeremy Crow. He's doing very nice bit of work in this Lightning Motorsport Audi, number 53, and it's ticking along for him right now, isn't it?
Yeah, so far so good for the Lightning Motorsports Audi. He had a good showing last time out at. He's actually had a good start to the campaign. Obviously, the result.
Sorry, looks like we've lost Nick once again. Nick, are you back? The headset we've provided you once again is
I
not.
hope so. Hopefully back on. Yeah.
There we go.
So I believe, yeah. So I was just saying with Luke Stone that he had a good couple of he's had a good start to the season in the Player One GT3 Championship, and we've seen his peak performances in the TCR Cup last time out in Season 2. So he's got the pace, he's got the potential to run with the elite drivers, but obviously it's just settling into the Audi because the team has thrown him into the Audi R8, and when you're new to GT3 racing and you're thrown into this car, it can be a little bit sketchy. So it does take a little while to get that to grips with the Audi R8, but so far he's running a really good job, and it's got a really good gap over Glenn Mead and Big Bruce the Shark, as well as Jeremy Crow. So far so good, and he's actually keeping up with the elite drivers in Wakefield and Donetti after his half spin at the back end of Spoon Curve.
Exactly, yeah. Fastest lap right now, 1:59.903 by Gopi Mahinderjit, who's just running away with things at the moment. Lewis Atkinson just doesn't seem to have the pace right now to hold on to the Black Rose Racing Mercedes. So the Audi may be at a slight deficit to the Mercedes at the minute, but we'll see. Sometimes it's just going to come down to strategy and how you're trying to execute your race. We may see a switch up, or at least a bit more close battling between the top few at some point. I think there's still a fair gap as well back to Nick Pfaff from Lewis Atkinson. There's still plenty to run away with there for those three. Dan Wood. That's his, I don't think we saw him last time at Fuji because we had quite a few who weren't able to make it to the Fuji race for a number of reasons. Dan Wood in P4 for Gridline Racing. This is their big ticket to get themselves re-elevated in the team's championship.
Yeah, absolutely, and they had two of the four drivers absent last time out of Fuji, so that really hurt them in the championship fight in the first couple of rounds. So whilst they had a good showing at Bathurst, unfortunately with Dan Wood being the reserve driver, only scored half points for the teams in the team's championship, so they couldn't capitalize on those maximum points. So now Dan Wood's full time, and he's here at Suzuka, and so far running P4 and right on the clutches of the Porsche in the Astor Racing of Nick Pfaff. So a really good start there, and Glenn Mead running up in 8th place as well, second in class. He's looking to really show his stride on what he can do in that BMW.
Of course, we've seen Hasselblad Motorsport dominate the season so far. That's the big news. It was a little bit wide there. A little bit of a moment for Dan Wood on Degner 1. Does get the car back into order. Has another moment on the exit of Degner 2. Nice control there from the number 27. But we have had Hasselblad Motorsport be very dominant in the championship so far, and I know that Gridline Racing have been thinking a lot about how they can capitalize on having these new drivers there. Jeff, you've been reading and writing the news. How's things looking? I mean, Hasselblad Motorsport, obviously it's early in the season, still can be caught. They can still have areas of their own, but it is dominant right now.
Yeah, Hasselblad brushing it at the moment. There's a massive discussion around Mark Hasselden in the AM and his dominance, AM category and his dominance there. But across the board, that team is so strong and especially being a debutant team in the Level 1 RCA GT3 Championship, it's making this their own. So they are the team to catch.
Certainly are. We're just looking on board with Jeremy Crow, I believe. This is actually BVL Cyclo. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what's going on here, but he's in a battle with Mick Hill down for P12 at the moment. This is a rapid battle that's going on between them. It is I think that is a Black Rose racing car. No, it is not. It's a Diffusion Race Engineering car. There we go. The Mercedes, and it's all red, white, and black. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate that. That, of course, is supposed to be Boris Blaznik, but I believe this is a replacement driver for them today.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's a full-time replacement. I believe Boris Blaznik has actually had to pull out just last minute, just to some family reasons. So family reasonings that he just couldn't make it to Japan. So whether we see him back for round 4 or throughout the whole season, we wish him all the best, and hopefully we get to see him back in the MotorMotion paddock very, very soon. But we're on board with Mick Hill now, car number 3 of the Hassel 1 Motorsports. So really been showing some good performance here, Hassel 1, as you've mentioned there, and they've got themselves a good driver there in Cameron Knowles. He's a very, as you mentioned, you know a little bit more about Cameron Knowles than we do, George, but from what I've seen his performances over the past couple of years that I've raced against him, he's definitely one to keep an eye on. So watch out for him as the season goes on, and as he progresses up towards the front of the field, to see where he ends up and where he lines up amongst the rest of the pack there.
Yeah, and he's in P10 at the moment in Lashbrook's car, of course, but this is Campbell Knowles, and yeah, Campbell is a great guy, good driver. He's, I think, recently qualified himself for the grand finals of the New Zealand Esports Racing Series in Gran Turismo 7, so seasoned man. He's a good strategic head on him as well. And we hope to see him do well here for Hassel 1 Motorsports. Of course, they'll be stoked to get a driver of this quality, but very sad to not have Chris Lashbrook in the car as well, because Chris is just such an excellent competitor. But yeah, on debut here for Campbell Knowles, and hopefully he has a good day out, because nothing quite like having a good day out at Suzuka. It really isn't.
Absolutely, and it's a great place to make your debut, whether you're making your first race appearance on GT7 or whether you're racing the first time at Suzuka. The track itself, you just have to experience it because it's such a great track. If we go on board, let's try and see if we can go on board with Campbell Knowles, and we can just see as we just sit back and relax, and we just take in the insights that is Suzuka circuit of this 5.8 kilometer circuit as they go barreling down towards turn 1. Let's stay on board with Campbell Knowles as he's chasing Jeremy Crow, who is 3rd place overall in the Pro Class Championship.
Well, what a lap from Campbell Knowles. That was very, very tidy driving and good racecraft there, especially at the end to back out as Jeremy Cooke came back across the defensive line onto the racing line for the final corner. The Casio Triangle, great, calm, bit composed driving there, I have to admit. And this battle is going to be an exciting one to watch. We'll keep a very close eye on it. Order at the top of the grid. still the same as it was a lap ago. Gopi Mahendrajit from Lewis Atkinson from Nick Pfaff. We believe Dan Wood is there in P4 as well. What a battle we've got on here. Black Rose Racing Mercedes versus the BMW of Hasselone Motorsport.
Oh, what a time to be on board with that lap there. You could just see the differences between the two cars' characteristics. The BMW just seems to be able to get to the corner a lot easier compared to the Mercedes. It looks like a little bit lazy, the Black Rose front end, so it struggles a little bit with the tight corners and with the braking zone. So it maybe looks like the setup isn't working for this circuit for the Mercedes AMG. Obviously, it looks to be working in the hands of Gopi Mahendrajit and Diffusion Race Engineering, but the Black Rose Racing so far looks like it's struggling compared to what it was last time at Fuji. So Jeremy Crow, a bit of work to do. P3 in the pro class, and a little bit behind Glenn Mead and Luke Stone, who's leading the pro class here at Suzuka.
Of course, one of the differences between the two, racing hards for Jeremy Crow, racing mediums for Campbell Knowles, so a little bit of a tyre difference between the two. It will account for some of the extra ease that we saw with Campbell Knowles in the BMW. I can't wait to see what these Mercedes are going to do on the racing mediums. They're able to do so well on the hard tyres so far, using a lot of curb, and they just don't seem to lose that much grip through the corners, which is fantastic. And, you know, well driven there by Jeremy Crow. He's handling it quite well, especially with the little bump draft that happened the previous time into 130R, where he got a little bit of extra speed that he wasn't necessarily expecting.
Yeah, full credit to the drivers that are still running on the hard tyres this late in the stint. Lap 11, about to start lap 12 of this 50-minute session. We're only nearly 23 minutes into this race as we have the top three, Gopi Mahendrajit, Lewis Atkinson, and Nick Pfaff, the top three in elites, Luke Stone, Glenn Mead, and Jeremy Crow, the top three in pro class. You have to give full commitment to those drivers that are sticking it out. They're not making that easy strategy call where you would just jump in the pit lane, one lap on hards, and then throw the rest of the race on mediums and just run as fast as you can. These guys are looking to commit to that one stop. Looks like the fuel's going to make it to the end because they're about to hit 25 minutes very shortly. So that's definitely going to be a tank of fuel they'll have to take on, and hoping that they can save those mediums to run an extra 25 minutes in the last stint.
Yeah, let's go down to Jeff and get some more thoughts on strategy. So obviously fuel, something that we don't talk enough about at all, because it is a big component of how people drive, and you can save a little bit more fuel on the racing mediums. You want to balance out your pace, use more fuel on the hards just to keep your car going at maximum pace and not lose too many positions to the medium runners. So how do you think that the drivers and the teams are managing this kind of race?
Yeah, look, I think if you are going for the one-stop strategy, that's a smart strategy to have, based on the fact that the mandatory tyre is the hard. If you can get the fuel to last till halfway through the race, that's definitely the optimum strategy from my perspective, and that is the reason why we have certain mandatory tyres for each round, especially here at Suzuka being such a long circuit. You know, it's whether do you risk having a two-stop strategy because you've dumped the hards and trying to run two mediums and trying to get there as fast as you can, or can you maintain that pace on the hard tyre itself? Going back to some of the driver changes that were discussed earlier, yeah, I absolutely wanted to, I guess discuss for Chris Lashbrook. He hasn't been able to continue on with Hasselone Motorsport, and whilst Campbell Knowles is running that livery, as of next round, Campbell Knowles will be their elite driver and is contracted to that team. Chris Lashbrook having to pull out there. And also, when we talk about Boris, he has been replaced in Diffusion Race Engineering by Daniel McDonald, otherwise known as Cyclone Dan. Again, commitments have taken him elsewhere, and Daniel McDonald has come in to actually take over and run as the full contracted driver in the pro division for Diffusion Race Engineering.
There we go. So a lot of permanent driver changes happening. Only a third of the way into the season, but it's good to see there's lots of drivers still keen to get involved, and the teams will be out there trying to get the cream of the crop for when things do happen. Life, of course, does happen in the sim racing world. So we do expect to see a few drivers having to switch things out and change things up. Of course, all of them will be gutted not to be able to continue their run in the GT3 Championship, because it's such a good series. James Lee, his racing mediums are in actually really good shape He's obviously had that issue earlier on. He's gone into the pit, so he's running a fairway down from the field. He's got Dan Wood as the next person ahead of him, a number pitting, as we just saw a moment ago. Dan Wood pitted on the medium tyres on the outlap now. James Lee is going for it in the Audi. I like to see it. I think you got to respect it.
I love to see it. I love it when the Audi likes to kick the rear end of the car, especially at the exit of Deck 2. You could just see you literally just had the foot planted down. The car was just losing the back end, but he just managed to make it stick. So it was a very great driving for Jimmy Lee there. But you could definitely tell those medium tires are starting to wear out a little bit. So he definitely has to make one more stop until the end of it. Until the end of his race, because I'm not so sure where he's going to end up, unfortunately, because it looks like he's P10 in the overall standings, but I feel like looking at the track map, he may drop down to as low as potentially 14, 15. So that spin and that accident that he had is definitely proven costly for the Black Rose Racing driver, also who's helping out Hooncorp Esports for the part-time role here at Suzuka.
Exactly right. Let's go through the grid and get an update on where everyone is. Here is Drew Griffin, OGR Toolshed for Astor Racing on the medium tyres. Looking rather worse for wear, but he has been out there a fair bit of time. Not sure if he changed tyres after the accident that happened between him and James Lee. So he might have just decided to keep on the same tyres. Matt McCullum has come into the pits and will be refueling. And then we've got Mick Hill up in P14 on the racing mediums. These are fresh tyres, so he's just come into the pits. 75% on fuel on board as well. We are now 2 minutes past halfway mark, so 23 minutes to go in this race. Then there's McCallum on fresh racing mediums, comes out just ahead of Mick Hill. Those two will be battling all the way to the end. Then Jeremy Crow in P12 on the racing mediums, fresh as well. Lots of fuel on board for the Mercedes, so that's an interesting choice, isn't it? Probably didn't need as much fuel as he's put in there. Continue to look around.
I wonder.
Oh, there we go.
I wonder if he's actually put in enough fuel in the car just to really rev the car out and really just show the maximum potential that you can see, that you can get from the Mercedes, as we have the lead Mercedes in this in Group A lobby. Cooke should now come into the pit lane with 2% fuel, but I think that extra little bit of fuel, I think that's just a little bit of a safety buffer for Jeremy Crow. As we can see there, Cyclone Dan has actually given way to Jeremy Crow. He knows that that's not his race. That's not his race with Jeremy Crow, so he's just given up that position just to let Jeremy Crow through, and I believe, and that's actually quite respectful there between the two Mercedes drivers.
That's right, yeah. So McDonald, he's on low fuel. He's got damage on the car, so something's happened to him in the last few laps. But he'll be in, no doubt, this lap. Otherwise, he won't make it. Gopi Mahindajit, yeah, in the pits. Let's see how much fuel he puts on board. About 80%. Luke Stone, also in the pits. Will just get his fuel started to leak. Not leak, but flow into the fuel tank. You want a little drip of fuel. A drop a second. It's more like 3 or 4 litres a second is the way that things go. But yeah, Jeremy Crow, then Camel Knowles, of course, permanently replacing Chris Lashbrook at Hassel 1 Motorsport in the elite category. And he is going to be in P10 for now on the racing hard for the remainder of the race. And Glenn Mead comes across the line, does a nice little lap there, 2:01.5. And he'll now continue on the racing mediums. Plenty of fuel on board. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, Nick. I think the extra fuel just means you can rev it out a little bit more, especially down that long pit straight and the back straight as well. So it just gives you that extra little bit of horsepower that you can utilize to your advantage, and especially if there's people around you saving fuel.
A handy lap time there by Glenn Mead, a 2:01.5. That's pretty much close to what we're seeing in the elite category throughout the race pace. So Glenn Mead's putting some good performance there in lap and 6, but remember, he's on the racing mediums. Luke Stone has come out on the racing hards, so those two have done a full reverse. Glenn Mead started on the hards, is now finished on mediums. Now Luke Stone's turn to try and activate those racing hards and get them up to temperature as quickly as he can to try and see if he can hold on to the victory here at the end of this race. We've got less than 20 minutes to go until the end of this race, but as we go up towards the grid, we have Jimmy Lee, who is yet to make a pit stop. We will have to make one more pit stop to make it a 2-stop strategy for Hooncorp Esports. And then we have Nathan Wakefield, who's also come into the pit lane as well, running in 6th place. Matt Donetti, Dan Wood are the first of the pit stoppers as well, with Gopi Mahindajit now the lead pack of the pit stoppers in 3rd place. But now we have Lewis Atkinson and Nick Pfaff, the remaining 2 in the pit lane, ready to finish their last stint on those racing hard tyres, as well as Gopi Mahindra. So the top three are looking to run those hard tyre finishes, but I wonder, out of the pack down the bottom, I can't remember who's the first runner on the mediums. There's Lewis Atkinson. He's got a good jump, but hasn't lost too much time, actually. I believe that's still the same gap roughly that they had when they came into the pit lane between the two of them. So maybe Lewis gained a little bit of time to Gopi. Maybe Gopi must have gained a little bit more. I'm not sure, but it looks very similar, and they're showing quite similar pace, the two of them.
Yeah, let's head down to Jeff Bruin. Once again, racing hard for both our leaders at the moment. Bit of a fuel difference. Gopi Mahindra got a lot more fuel on board. Might be that Mercedes is just able to guzzle a bit more fuel, or maybe Lewis thinks he can get away with a little bit less time in the pit stop. We did, of course, see him close up the gap a fair bit, so that might be accounting for it. But we've seen Lewis run afoul of fuel issues before. Saw it at Fuji, where he ended up doing donuts for 5 minutes after the race had ended because he couldn't make it back. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, I think Lewis definitely looks at his strategy, and he calculates down to the nth degree about how much fuel he comes in that he may use. Again, sometimes I think there might be a miscalculation when he's looking at chasing, and I think, you know, if he can get inside the slipstream here of Gopi, he sets himself in a good spot. But as you've said before, George, that can come unstuck really easily. The discussion that we had about Daniel and Jeremy Crow was actually quite interesting earlier in relation to, you know, track position, because they're actually in a race with each other, and noting that one has pitted, one hasn't. You know, the way that Daniel gave up, you know, track position to Jeremy Crow, both being in the pro class, was quite interesting, and I would have thought there would have been a bit more of a battle. But again, tyres and fuel come into it, and it's about the long game in this race.
Well, he also had damage on the car as well, did Daniel. So he obviously he had a very low fuel, heavily worn tires, and damage on the car. So it's just like, that's just three things that you don't want on your
That's
on
not
your
to
wagon.
fight then, I guess. Yeah, for sure.
So absolutely. So unfortunately for him, he had to come into the pit lane and just repair the damage and get on a fresh set of boots and a full tank of fuel. But here's an interesting factor here. The top four are on the racing many times. Guess who's the next person in line that is on the softer compound? Right behind in that number 51, Matt Donetti on racing mediums in the Lamborghini Hurricane. Watch out for this man to come through the pack. He's got Dan Wood ahead of him that is battling for P4 on the track position, and P3 with Nick Pfaff is quite a fair way up towards through the S curves as he's about to approach Dunlop curve very shortly. But Matt Donetti is going to try and go for an outside move through the S section. It's very nearly impossible to do. Dan Wood runs very wide, and looks like we're going to go on board with Matt Donetti as he goes towards the inside, which is going to lead towards the outside through Deckner 1. Can't make the move around the outside. It's technically impossible. Whoa! There's been a contact made. A little bit of rudging there, but some great racecraft between the two drivers. Dan Wood, that was some great car control between Dan Wood, and here comes Nathan Wakefield to throw the nose down the inside of the grid line racing BMW to try and take away P5, but some great racing there. I did think there was a little bit of contact, but I don't think there was much in it, George.
Oh, wow. Dan Wood, well done. Left, right. Gets slid through the Degner 1 corner. He's going to be overtaken. Wakefield has decided spoon curve is where he's going to get it done, and he's done it beautifully up the inside line. That's two racing medium drivers past Dan Wood, who started on the medium tyre, couldn't get any positions ahead of these two initially, and has now lost that position once again, finds himself back in P6 in this race. Wow. I mean, what a moment for Dan Wood. I was amazed at the car control he displayed there on the hard tyre as well, drifting through Degner 2, still able to hold on to it. And yes, Matt Donetti, yes, Nathan Wakefield both got through on him, but, you know, it's impressive work on the hard tyres. And in some ways, with medium running fast chaps like those two, you're going to end up, it's more of a question of just, you know, of when rather than if at that stage, because we know how quick Nathan is, we know how quick Donetti is, and when you're on the hard tyre, it's just such a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to drop back down to P7 because I believe Glenn Mead has taken the lead of the pro class. He's actually made the move on Luke Stone on this lap, so 203.4. So he's definitely made the move on Luke Stone in the 53. So now Glenn Mead for Gridline Racing takes the race lead, while we saw one Gridline driver getting it all wrong from P4 to P6, and while the other gridline driver goes from P2 to P1 in class. Glenn Mead, 7th overall, but P1 in the pro class. Got the move done, as I'm hearing reports there, at Spoon Curve as well. So we saw 2 moves there. So while we saw one gridline racing driver lose a position at Spoon Curve, the other driver gains a position.
Absolutely, Jeff. You were watching on board with some of that. Give us your
Yeah,
thoughts, because that was an interesting exchange, wasn't it?
100%. And I just, you just wonder about the strategy at Gridline Racing. They're a team in turmoil if you read the papers at this point in time. And there's different strategies happening for their different divisions. In their drivers, and we've got you, we, we've got Tamwood who starts on mediums and is finishing on hards, I guess, for a one-stop strategy. Was that the best strategy? Noting that the drivers that are around him, that's a question, and I think the team owner Scott Taylor is going to be having a sit down with his drivers to try to dissect that, and I think they'll be doing that in some, in-depth discussion.
They certainly will need to have a chat, because that strategy call has maybe cost them a little bit of a better result here today. There's still some really good points available, though. Of course, Glenn Mead just doing really, really good work here, and getting ahead of Luke Stone is such an important part of this, especially for the pro category standings, especially for the team standings. It's a way for Gridline Racing to get their feet underneath them for this season, get themselves elevated back up into the championship, and start to claw back some of the other teams that have found themselves much further up the grid than Gridline Racing. Yeah, so they will need to go back and analyze that, and Dan Wood will be thinking, okay, this is some pretty heavy competition here. Again, we know how quick Dan Wood is. He's proven it before. We've got to see the strategy execution as well.
Agreed in that sense as well. And as you said about Glenn Mead, he is absolutely putting on a masterclass here in pro. He's leading the pro division at this point in time in the race, and he seems to have come up with an optimum strategy. And look, let's not count out Gridline. Gridline, finished last year behind Asta Racing in the Teams Championship. Asta are a bit floundering at the moment. Gridline are trying to, I guess, remediate the issue they had where they've went from second down to the back of the grid, and Glenn Mead's doing a really great job for bringing up some points there.
And of course, P3 here, Black Rose Racing, Jeremy Crow in the pro division, with Campbell Knowles behind him. Campbell Knowles, of course, on debut, so has got a few things to get figured out with regards to this Group 3 class and the racing that he's engaged with, and the other drivers. Got to learn the ins and outs of the GT3 Championship. Takes a little while to get familiar with these things, but Jeremy Crow doing a great job to hold them off and staying within earshot range of the two ahead. So if something goes awry there, he's in a good position to take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and you've got to think back as well. Hassel One has had a little bit of has a bit of a change in the driver lineup, as we mentioned earlier. Chris Lashbrook being replaced by Campbell Knowles. So, and I believe Mick Hill's not feeling 100% himself, so he was feeling unwell. So he's actually, full credit to him to actually be jumping in the car in the BMW N6 Group 3 entry of Hassel One Motorsports, so he's not feeling 100%, but it's full credit to the team. Down 10th and 11th place, so probably not the best team points they're going to get here at Suzuka, but it's still some valuable points that they are getting over their competition. I believe that's the most important thing as well, George. You have to have both cars running in this race, in both Group A and Group B, to maximize your team's championship points and winning the overall championship. That's how we saw Asta Racing get the championship over Gridline Racing last year, because of the consistency and the dedication that they were able to put throughout that whole campaign in Season 1. And now we're seeing that with Season 2 with Hassel One Motorsports. So far, Hassel One have had all 4 drivers compete in this championship fight, albeit minus 1 driver in Chris Lashbrook not being in attendance at Fuji Speedway. But keep an eye on them as the months go by and as the season goes by. We saw it with Gopi Mahindran. He struggled in the opening couple of races, but look where he is right now. He's in P1 and he's well ahead of Lewis Atkinson, so potentially that could be Campbell Knowles in the next race or so.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the familiarity is going to make a huge difference. And McDonald also another that's going to have to get a little bit more familiar with things because he's got the race leader right behind him. And of course, these two in the same team, Diffusion Race Engineering. So there'll be maybe a bit of satisfaction and dissatisfaction when that blue flag is applied and Gopi Mahindra does come on through. But Diffusion Race Engineering sandwiching, quite literally sandwiching the bread and the sandwich on this race here today in Group A in the elite driver category. And Gopi Mahindra has really set a benchmark. He's driven away from Lewis Atkinson. Probably not quite enough fuel there, or the pace is just not there for Lewis Atkinson in P2. But Hooncorp Esports is another that's got so much potential in that team to get up there and get some good results. And Lewis Atkinson at Fuji, good example of just when things go slightly wrong, but at the same time still had a good overall result in the race, so plenty of points being taken home by them. But we shall see if Diffusion Race Engineering, if they can keep this run of form and if Gopi Mahindra has really hit his stride, boy, can't wait to see more from Diffusion Race Engineering.
Oh, goodness me, I'm looking forward to it. Just get the popcorn ready and just would see some Gopi Mahindra masterclass as his teammate lets him go by and gets lapped here 42 minutes into the race with less than 8 minutes to go. We have Gopi Mahindra, Lewis Atkinson, Nick Pfaff, your top three in the elite division, while we have Glenn Mead, Luke Stone, and Jeremy Crow, the top three in the pro class, as we have Dan Wood still battling it out with Nathan Wakefield. And again, we're seeing Dan Wood going all sideways through Degner 1 and Degner 2. Can Nathan Wakefield throw the inside move through the hairpin? He doesn't. He decides to go against it and stays behind the BMW. So we go on board with the Mercedes Black Rose Racing driver as he comes up towards 200R, then Spoon Curve. It's all about just trying to keep yourself tucked underneath that rear wing and try not to get affected by the dirty air through Spoon Curve. Just brake a little bit earlier, just get the power down as early as you can, and then just a little dab of the brakes just to get the front of the nose turned into the corner. It's a bit of a lazy corner at the end of Spoon Curve. It's about getting that nose in, and it's about trying to go for that late apex and try and hook it in so you get a good run here. A bit of clear air, a little bit of breathing air for Nathan Wakefield there, just to try and get a bit of clear air through the grill, through the massive grill of the AMG. But it's not actually looking to make any moves on Dan Wood just yet. Maybe he might be able to make a move within the next 7 minutes or so, because he's got plenty of time, but he doesn't want to lose that opportunity, George.
Yeah, that's right. And Spoon Curve is such a tricky place to deal with. It really, really is. It's actually one of my favorite corners of all time. I absolutely love it. There's so many ways of attacking the corner, and it's so dependent on who's driving around you, in front or behind. I always feel like it's a little bit like you need the technique. It's sort of like dipping a teaspoon into souffle. You just need to be very cautious, very careful, very subtle. That was not subtle from Nathan Wakefield. Finds himself out on the wrong part of the tarmac. On the grass, in fact, close. On the exit of turn 1. It was incredibly close. These two have both now shown incredible race control of their vehicles, both of them going sideways in a number of places. So Nathan Wakefield's on the medium tire. Now we saw him get the overtake, an opportunistic one on Dan Wood. He's also going sideways in Dunlop. His tires not feeling particularly happy at the moment, and neither are Nathan Wakefield's. Look at those mediums. They are not healthy, and I wonder if this has contributed to him falling back a position.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the tire wear on the AMG, they do tend to chew through the front tires quite a fair bit. What I'm just intrigued about, I know Dan Wood as a person. I've met him before. I've had good conversation, good banter with him, and I know the way he drives. The way he drives that car is absolutely incredible. He loves his exit oversteers, no matter what. He just gets the foot down. And he's like, you know what? I don't mind if the car's going to snap on me because I've got such great car control, and it's very well displayed there in the BMW. But on the hard tyres compared to the mediums, he looks like he's looking after them very well, and he's actually getting more pace on that hard tyre compared to Wakefield's already worn medium tyres. So probably the crossover is happened right now between the mediums and the hards, and Dan Wood is definitely getting that upper hand for P5, as we saw Matt Donetti go past Daniel McDonald, who was the the only lap driver here in this Group A lobby.
That's right, yeah. So, Jeff, we were talking about the hard and medium and which strategy was right and which one was wrong. But when you get to a crossover like this, suddenly the fates reverse. It's not going to be enough for Dan Wood to catch up to Matt Donetti, who's done very well on his racing mediums. They haven't crossed over enough with Dan Wood's pace. But it's an interesting fact, isn't it? If you're going to run your hards, at least at least you can run them to a point where the medium runners have worn out their mediums.
Yeah, and I think the weather is a major factor here at the circuit today. You know, I think if it was a little bit warmer, we might have seen that crossover come in a little bit sooner. As it stands, you know, again, it's a strategy decision made by Gridline, and Dan Wood's doing a fantastic job trying to, you know, deal with that strategy. It should be something that they'll look at in the post-race debriefs as they do. But, you know, hearing from pit lane at the moment, knowing that we're 3 laps towards the end, all teams have basically said, you know, it's now or never. So we should see all teams up and down the up and down the actual pack start to fight it out to try and get in front of whoever they're behind to take home
maximum points. Yes, indeed.
This battle pack is not going to end here, George. I think we're going to see a last lap, last corner overtake between these two, because these two are putting on an absolute show around the outside of Spoon Curve. That's unheard of, but it's going to try to throw the nose down the inside of Spoon Curve. That's not going to happen either for Nathan Wakefield, but it's going to compromise Dan Wood's exit out of Spoon Curve, and now Nathan Wakefield can have a better opportunity. He's a lot closer now to the rear wing of Dan Wood's BMW N6. Surely not a move down 130R. No, just throwing the nose there, just showing the nose, saying to him, I'm here, I'm ready to make a pounce on you when you make a mistake. Dan Wood actually ran wide through 130R there. Is he about to get the car stopped? He actually does. So well done to Dan Wood for pulling the car up after running wide through 130R. But
nearly does a Logan Sargent at the final corner. That was very sideways, as you said before. He is a man that likes to go slightly sideways, helps him, but it's going to be side by side into turn 1. It's Nathan Wakefield on the outside line, does tuck back into the inside. He's going to have a look at the second part of turn 1. That is incredibly close. Racing sideways again for Dan Wood. You can just see the understeer in that BMW, the body language. It does not want to do what Dan Wood needs it to do right now.
Yeah, and Dan Wood is just trying to fight the car to tell it, I want you to do this, and the car's saying, nope, I can't do that. And he's like, well, I'm going to make sure you do it. So that's why he just sticks the back end of the car just with a bit of exit oversteer. But he's got really good car control there as Dan Wood. He's putting his car in the right place at the right time with less than 2 minutes to go. So we're looking at about another couple more laps, as Jeff mentioned on the previous lap. So look for these two to be battling it out for the last couple of laps here as we see Dan McDonald actually move out of the way there, down in last place, unfortunately, for the 77. Not the debut that he wants to remember. But this is another interesting pack we're seeing here. This has come from out of nowhere, George. Matt Donetti and Nick Pfaff. I believe this gap was about 7 to 8 seconds only a few laps ago, but something must have happened with the Nick Pfaff entry.
Oh, it certainly has. He has got no fuel on that car, and he is worried about making it to the end, so he's been fuel saving. Nick Pfaff has got his fuel calculation wrong, and that is the easiest overtake that Matt Donetti will have today, because he is going at full throttle, whereas Nick Pfaff is absolutely not. And Nick Pfaff will be hoping he can get to the timing line, see his fuel amount, and then go for a full lap and hopefully stay in the slipstream enough. I don't know if he's going to make it. There is 40 seconds left in this race. Gopi Mahindra has just come round lap 1, so this is now the final lap of the race. So hopefully Nick Pfaff has not got it so wrong that he'll have any fuel left at the end of the race. If he comes across the line with any fuel in that car, he will be gutted, because that is a P3 that has just slipped through his fingers.
That's such a shame for Nick Pfaff, and because it is a timed race, it's all about the calculations, George. It's about getting that calculation absolutely to perfection and just wanting to make sure that you get it right, because it's all about getting it right, you know, because it's a timed race. The drivers are starting to come up with numbers in their head, that whether they're sure, they're not sure. That's why we saw difference in the fuel as well in that pit stop. Some put more, some put less, because they're just trying to work out what the numbers are. And it's always conservative to go more, but really rev the car out, and as well, you know, be safe at the same time.
Oh yeah, Nick Pfaff going for a bit of a drift as well. I think he knows that he's probably got just enough fuel to make it, so could have been going a little bit harder, maybe defended it a little bit harder. But, you know, you're never quite sure until you realize the numbers have lined up incorrectly. Do want to note that James Lee has put on the fastest lap in this race, a 158.898. So a little bit of strategic thinking there by one of our team leaders, now driving for Hoon Corp temporarily. And I think he's taken that away from Gopi Mahindra. Says, no, you know, Diffusion Race Engineering, you ain't getting that extra point. You ain't getting any extra thing, anything extra out of this race. But a nice lap there. He was on the softs for quite some time, so he's managed to go and put in the fastest lap. He'll be stoked with that, I'm sure. But here we go. Casio Triangle for the last time, and that is Gopi Mahindra for Diffusion Race Engineering. He'll be across the line, takes his first victory in the GT3 Championship for Diffusion Race Engineering. I believe it's Diffusion Race Engineering's first victory in the Elite Championship as well. Well done to them, and well done to Gopi Mahindra. That is a great result. Lewis Atkinson in P2. I think that's one of his equal best results this season so far. Matt Dernedi gets to P3, followed by Nick Pfaff, who has got 0 fuel on board, so he had to do what he had to do. Unfortunately, it's cost him and Asta Racing a P3 in this race. Across the line, Dan Wood just holds on from Nathan Wakefield. We'll go to the results in a few moments' time, but wow, I mean, exciting race. Such a strategic race today.
Oh, absolutely. And some different strategies you saw there. Obviously, some starting on the mediums, finishing on hards, and then mediums, and then hards to mediums. So it was very hard to, it was definitely, no pun intended, it was actually very hard to tell what the perfect strategy was here. Unfortunately, we don't have our supercomputer. We don't have our wizard in an expert of strategy in Ando Scott with us here today. But yeah, unfortunately, it's definitely the strategy that plays around here. The two-stop didn't work, and unfortunately for Jimmy Lee and Drew Griffin, who had to run that two-stop after that incident that happened at the exit of 130R, the two-stop definitely didn't help them in any case of moving them up towards the front of the grid. But here is our grid, and here is our results after what was an amazing Group A lobby. We have Gopi Mahindra, Lewis Atkinson, and Matt Dernedi taking it away P3 from Nick Pfaff. Such a shame for the Asta Porsche to finish up in 4th place. And then Dan Wood just getting ahead of Nathan Wakefield. What a battle those two have been putting 5th and 6th place. And then we have Glenn Mead, 7th overall, but the winner of Pro Class in Group A, taking home maximum points there, 45 points next to his name. So great to see there. Luke Stone and Jeremy Crow rounding up the podium for Pro Class, and Campbell Knowles on his debut rounds up inside the top 10 on 12 points. Then we have Matt McCallum, James Lee setting those purple laps lap after lap on the soft tyres. Then Drew Griffin, Daniel McDonald, Mick Hill, and Chris Duncan, who unfortunately had to retire. Both of them had to retire, unfortunately, both Mick Hill and Chris Duncan. So unfortunately, the illness for Mick Hill got the better of him, and he just had to pull out on the last minute. So very unfortunate for both drivers to miss out the end of this race.
Alrighty, so ladies and gentlemen in chat, let us know your driver of the day. And while I think of mine, I'm going to throw it to Jeff Bruin. I'm going to throw you into the bus first, Jeff. I would like your driver of the day, and have a think about it first, and then I will come back to it. First of all, let's take a look at the elite category driver standings right now. Matt Dernedi for CP Motorsports, 102 points for him. Then Lewis Atkinson in P2 for Hoon Corp Esports on 91 points. Then Nathan Wakefield, P3, only 1 point behind Lewis Atkinson at the moment, so a close battle there. But Matt Dernedi has been showing that he's got the right stuff. Gopi Mahindra with the victory there elevates himself to 80 points and 4th place with a 10-point lead over Nick Pfaff for Asta Racing, who would have bagged himself at least another 10 points or so, given if he had finished P3 this race. Dan Wood in P6 as he makes his entry and again starts again with his points here. 6th place for him, followed by Campbell Knowles, that's the One Motorsport, and then Chris Duncan for Lightning Motorsport. In pro category standings, Luke Stone, 111 points for him, 111, or however that word is pronounced. So Luke Stone, yes, I managed to get a Lord of the Rings reference in there. I feel very happy with myself. So Lightning Motorsport and Luke Stone on 111 points. Jeremy Crow and P2 for Black Rose Racing on 103 in a battle going on here. Glenn Mead, Bruce the Shark, as we know him. He is on a run of good form, and 101 points puts him near to the P2 position. Matt McCullum in P4 for CP Motorsports. Drew Griffin for Asta Racing in P5. Mick Hill for Hasselblad Motorsports in P6. Followed by Dean van der Zandt, who unfortunately we haven't seen as much as we'd like to from him, but we shall see him return in P7. And then P8, Dan McDonald, of course, for Diffusion Race Engineering on debut. Right, let's throw it to Jeff. Jeff, your driver of the day, please, for Group A.
Okay, firstly, I'd like to congratulate the podium winners for the elite class and the pro class. Well done to those drivers. An excellent effort today. My driver of the day goes to Gopi Mahindradin. He, qualified on pole, and he led the race. Basically, was a masterclass in driving the elite category today, and finished in first. He is my driver of the day.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jeff. All right, Nick, let's throw you under the bus next.
Well, absolutely. I mean, what a race that was for both elite and pro class, and some great different strategies amongst the field there. But definitely my driver of the day is going to have to go to our favourite Kiwi, that is Glenn Mead for Gridline Racing, taking out the pro class victory and getting it on at the end of the pit stop and making the move on through Spoon Curve. What a way to take the lead of pro class, and what a way to seal your victory. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's 3 different winners from 3 rounds in the first 3 races here that we've had in MotorMotion GT3 Championship. So maybe we'll have to go back through the stats, but I believe that's 3 victories for each division in Group A. So if that's the case, unbelievably close to see what we're going to have in offer for the rest of the season. But for now, my driver of the day is Glenn Mead for Gridline Racing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Actually, so my driver of the day was definitely going to be with Glenn Mead too, because it was a really solid drive. Got himself up ahead of Luke Stone. That's big for the championship and pro category. It was a solid drive. It was a safe drive. It was a strategic drive, and I think Glenn Mead deserves a round of applause for that one, as does Gopi Mahindradin. It was a very clean race from him too. It was never really under a massive amount of threat from Lewis, other than the first 5 or 6 laps in the race, and then he really pulled away and did well. But Glenn Mead, for me, with the overtake that he made, did really, really well, especially at the beginning when there was a lot of chaos happening from P5 and down. So Glenn Mead gets 2 votes, 1 vote for Gopi Mahindradin. So chat, let us know exactly who your driver of the days are, and day is, I should say. And we will do the calculation and figure out who will get that honor for Group A. In the meantime, it is time for us to go on a very short break before we get to the Group B coverage. That's the Pro-Am and Am categories. Nick is already rubbing his hands together, I can tell. He's looking forward to this one very much, as we all are here. So we'll see you in a few minutes' time for Group B coverage. Stay tuned here on MotorMotion Esports E-Series. We will see you all very, very soon. Hello and welcome back to MotorMotion E-Series as the third round of Season 2 continues here at the Player 1 Sim Gear GT3 Championship at Suzuka. Group A really had some fireworks, some really interesting strategy going on between all the drivers. And I think some clear winning strategies sort of evolved a little bit. And you need to keep the fuel levels high. You need to keep those mediums nice and comfortable in a good zone so that they last as long as possible. The one-stop strategy, clearly the best way to go about today's race. And now, Nick and I get very excited because we get to do Pro-Am and Am coverage, which is absolutely fantastic because we know how hard these drivers go in Group B. Not to say there's not to discriminate at all here, but we are absolutely biased, and Group A can do its thing, and it's very impressive racing, but oh boy, Group B, we absolutely love these guys in Pro-Am and Am class, so we're looking forward to seeing what is going to happen in the Group B broadcast today. Let's take a little look on who has qualified where in Group B. And it is Jackson Dean for Hassel 1 Motorsport. Pro-Am will be leading us away on the grid in Pro-Am category, followed by Mark Pacheco, Shane Attard, Aiden Sampson, and then Robert Rice. And so this is a very interesting top 5. We'll talk about the Am class in just a second, but yeah, Jackson Dean gets a qualifying pole at last. Then Mark Pacheco, really good for Gridline Racing to see him right up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the confidence that Jackson Dean has brought in the Pro-Am Championship, he's been getting constant podiums and he's yet to take his first victory. While he almost got his first victory at Mount Panorama, the strategy cost him. So strategy, unfortunately, has been hurting his progression throughout this championship. Even though he's leading the championship it's just not able to get his first win. But can he do it at Suzuka, leading the way on pole position alongside his fellow BMW driver in Mark Pacheco, while we look down at Am class, Mark Hasseldine. So that's 2 pole positions for the Hassel 1 Motorsport. While they struggled a little bit in the Group A Elite and Pro category, Pro-Am and the Am class in Group B are showing some true colours of Hassel 1 Motorsport, qualifying in the pole position of each class. Then Richard Robertson, Mitch Collin, and Rob Jacobs rounds up at the end of the Pro-Am class in the qualifying results, with Aiden Chase for Astor Racing, Kevin Cooper, Mark Hogan for Lightning Motorsport. I believe that's a debut for Mark Hogan in 13th place. And then we have Wade Rushton, who's making a return for Gridline Racing, and then Graham Splint for CP Motorsports, rounding up our 15-man grid. I believe we have one driver missing here tonight. We'll find out very shortly who that is going to be. But as we always say, George, this is, as you mentioned before we went off airs, we're rubbing our hands, we're licking our lips about this form of racing in Group B. While it is basically a different kettle of fish between Group A and Group B, this lobby and this group always decides to throw up some different curveballs. We could be seeing some new victors. We could be seeing a wild, wacky strategy that could work in the favor of some of the faster drivers. We could be seeing something different, We could be seeing drivers going side by side every single corner. Anything could happen in Group B, and I'm always looking forward to it.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a brilliant group. And yeah, very interesting there. We've got Black Rose Racing Am driver. It looks like Jack Finch is not able to make it to the grid today, from what I can tell. Unless I see his name there. No, I do not. So I believe that is who is unable to make it today. And we've got a couple of the Am drivers up ahead of a trio of Pro-Ams. So there's immediate consideration there for extra points for Mark Hasseldine and Bob Massey. So Bob Massey will be looking to take a really good bit of points here. Of course, that's RPM. We've pronounced his name wrong a number of times. It is RPM 808, Bob Massey for Diffusion Race Engineering. But yeah, no wonder there's a bit of conversation about how the AM class is shaking out at the moment, Nick. It's a tricky one to do because AM class is really your up-and-comers. It's those who are running a bit slower in this group and class of cars. We know Mark Hasseldine's got lots of experience. He's leading the championship in Pro-Am in AM right now. So no wonder there's a little bit of conversation about this. But the Pro-Ams have been strong too. So it's just an overall, it's a very even grid between the Pro-Ams and AMs, and it always has been.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark Hasseldine in the AM class has taken 2 victories in a row at Bathurst and at Fuji Raceway. So if he can get the hat trick of victories, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of discussions through the paddock about where he sits in the AM class division, because obviously, that's how, I believe that's how it usually goes, George. Anyway, you know, you get a little bit of whispers here and there about drivers, whether in the right category or whether they're just too strong for that class, or whether they're just, you know, maybe sugarcoating of what they achieved in the pre-qualifying lobbies. We never know, but we do have to respect the quality that we have seen with Mark Hasseltine in that BMW Hasselone Motorsport, getting 2 victories in a row. If he can get the hat trick, that'll seal off a really good start to his championship quest.
Certainly will be. And AM class is here to be a place where drivers can evolve and become better, and having a target that is Mark Hasseltine right now should be something that all the AM class drivers are aspiring to achieve. And so maybe take a closer look at his strategies, maybe take a closer look at what he's doing in the car. That could help a lot of the AM class drivers grow, and that's what this class is all about. Let's head out on track now as Group B coverage is about to begin. And we look forward to this so much. Oh, I can feel the energy already. Let's go out on track and see how Group B goes. Jackson Dean will lead us away for Hasselone Motorsports, followed by Gridline Racing's Mark Pacheco. And of course it is Sir Dids and Aiden Sampson. There's the lights going, and we're green flag racing. That's a good start for everyone on the grid. Rolling start, of course, they'll go single file heading through that first corner. Racing medium's the choice for Jackson Dean. Trying to get a little bit of heat into them initially before they head into turn 1. Will they all make it through? Mark Pacheco is getting a good run on there on Jackson Dean, putting a huge amount of pressure on early in this race. CP Motorsports in the background running a little bit behind and getting overtaken by Mark Hasseltine into turn 3, it looks like, but we're focusing on the battle right at the top here. Jackson Dean under a lot of pressure from Mark Pacheco early in this race. 2 BMWs, of course, between Gridline Racing and Hasselone Motorsports, so it's the battle of the BMWs out the top. And then, of course, we do have Sir Dids here for Asta Racing, followed by the amazing Aiden Sampson for Diffusion Race Engineering, under a lot of pressure from Robert Rice, the sub who debuted last week at Fuji and put on a great show, got P3 in the race for CP Motorsports in the Pro-Am class. He's in 5th right now, putting a lot of pressure. That's a car around. It's a car very gone, and that looks like Rob Robinson. No, it's not. Who is that? That is RPM. It is Bob Massey, has had a shocker on the hard tyres. Exit of Decna 2 and running P2 in AM class, finds himself last in this race.
Oh, that's an unfortunate spin there at the end of Decna 2 for Bob Massey, our favourite RPM, as the name that we could not get right at Fuji, but now looks like we've stapled that in our brains, and we've just pretty much memorised that on our whiteboard here in the combox about getting his name right. But that's an unfortunate end to what is going to be a long 50 minutes now. Let's hope to see if we can make some ground in the remaining
and we've had a small mic failure once again. There we go, we're back.
As it's about to go through 130R, Jackson Dean is about to come through, and then Mark Hasseltine, the leader of AM class, as they come towards Casio Triangle for the first time. And he's actually holding on very nicely to the back of Robert Rice there, as well as Aiden Sampson. So maybe a bit of a tyre discrepancy between the Hassel 1 drivers and the drivers ahead of him. Yes, he's on the medium tyres, while we saw Aiden Sampson on the racing hards. But there's the first move for the CP Motorsports Lamborghini, back up into P4 and getting himself into that 4th position. But Mark Pacheco really showing his class. So we have a car wide there. That is one of the Asta cars. That's Shane Addo, he's gone off into the barriers, and that is damage, and heavy damage on the Porsche 911. So that's 2 Asta cars in 2 lobbies that have gone spinning around. One at the exit of 130R, and the second one at the exit of turn 2 through the second curve.
Wow, that's a big accident there. He was just, very, very wide on the exit of turn 1. Must have clipped that little bit of green, sent him wide. Car didn't want to stop. Unfortunately, it's ended up careering him all the way across the circuit into the barrier on the other side of the track. And that's a disaster for Shane Attard, who is really in a good position for some really good points for Asta Racing, who really need them at this moment as well in the current team standings. So a lot of work now for Shane Attard, and he'll have to come to the pits and get that damage repaired. The battle at the top still going on. Pacheco and Jackson Dean. Love this shot of the hairpin. This is a beautiful, beautiful place to go racing. Mark Hasseltine still in P5. Mitch Collin now in P6, followed by Rob Jacobs, who's made up a couple of positions already and looking fairly strong. We've got Audis versus Audis, Lightning Motorsports versus Hoon Corp Audis going at it at the moment. Into Spoon, that's very wide though for Mitch Collin. That's going to really compromise him on the Exeter Spoon. That could be an opportunity for Rob Jacobs, but he has a moment as well on the Exeter Spoon. Oh, it's all kicking off. And then, of course, Chase down here, who we saw was the only one to execute an alternative strategy at Fuji. Didn't work out for him, so it'll be interesting to see if he's got something new up his sleeve this week.
He's got himself ahead of his rival that was battling all race long at Fuji Speedway. He was ahead of Kevin Cooper and is now battling the other Hooncorp driver in Rob Jacobs. So he's a bit of a Hooncorp sandwich there, but it's quite a big loaf of bread between the gaps there. So there's no extra filling in between the Hooncorp drivers there. So a bit of a long baguette that Aiden Chase is in the middle of. So Renegade in Kevin Cooper in 9th place and Wade Rushton inside the top 10. It's good to see Wade Rushton back in the BMW M6. He's been showing some great performances last time out in Season 1, and in Season 2, we're definitely missing his presence, but he's looking to put on a good performance there as we see Blue Dog in the CP Motorsports Car 6, David Splint, down in position 15 in last place, car number 6 of the CP Motorsports, while Robert Rice is inside the podium's positioning for Pro-Am. His teammate and driver, and David Splint, just down the back end of last place, not really having a good time. He struggled a lot at Fuji with the Lamborghini Hurricane. So it looks like he's just not getting to grips just yet with that car.
Well, that Lamborghini is a real monster to drive. It just feels like the rear end does not want to stick, no matter what you do. So it's a very, very tricky bit of machinery to work. But once you get the feeling for it, it's an absolute monster. And Robert Rice has actually been very impressive to see him immediately get hands-on with it and go, yep, I know what I'm doing. Let's get on with things and let's go racing at the moment. I mean, if he gets the position he's got right now, that'll be 2 P3s back-to-back, and that's going to help CP Motorsports an awful amount, an awfully good amount, I should say, and clarify, in the team's championship. It's just good points for them at the end of the day. And yeah, super sub really for CP Motorsports. Robert Rice running in P3, admittedly, at the result of Shane Attard going for a bit of a spin. Jackson Dean now pulling away. Let's take a little look and go through the grid and have a look at the tyre usage around and see who's on what. We've got medium running for the top 2, mediums for Robert Rice as well, Aiden Sampson on the hard tyres. So there's our first hard tyre runner. Keep a very close eye on Diffusion Race Engineering's Aiden Sampson in the Pro-Am category, because he's going to be fast at the end of this race. Then we've got our AM class leader, Mark Hasseldine, on the medium tyre.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark, we can see definitely a couple of strategies there. We saw the race-winning strategy with Gopi Mahendrajit in Group A, where he started on the racing mediums, finished on the racing hards. And then we saw the pro driver in Glenn Mead start on the hard tyres racing mediums. But the Hassel One Motorsport looks like they've got a little bit more data on their cars, and they feel like that the medium tyres is the right call to start this race on. And we can definitely see the pace there. Jackson Dean really pulling away from the Pro-Am field, and Mark Hasseldine really keeping up with the Pro-Am drivers. So really good start there by the drivers there. But there's a lot of hard drives, a lot of different strategies that we're seeing amongst our field here tonight. But it's great to see some great racing involved there. Mitch Collin running up in 6th place there. He's one of the Pro-Am drivers ahead of Rob Jacobs and Aiden Chase, who is P2 in class in the amateur class. So he's doing really well there just to try and keep up with these Pro-Am drivers. So you've got a couple of AM drivers keeping up with the Pro-Ams, George, and it's a great testament to see that how far the progression has come so far, and we're only 3 rounds deep into this championship.
Exactly right, and of course the strategy is such a critical one to make here, whether you start on the mediums or the hards, and a lot of the AM drivers opting for the medium tyre at the beginning of the race. The Pro-Am's thinking, okay, we can get away with the hards for a little bit longer, but that's actually causing some headaches for the Pro-Am drivers with the medium runners ahead of them. You are running essentially equal pace. The 911 here, also a 911 Porsche. That's a move. It is a move there. Rob Jacobs has made the move on Mitch Collin. He's gotten all sorts of compromise through Spoon and will lose the position. That's Rob Jacobs for Hooncorp Esports up to P6. Both running the hard tyres, so it's one of those, you're dancing with grip all the time on those hard tyres. Bit of gravel on the on the entry of 130R. Mitch Collin having a bigger problem. It's actually controlled it beautifully and will get the car stopped somehow.
Wow.
Chase will go up ahead of him. Really impressive work though. But yes, Chase for Asta Racing in the AM class. He's now running 2nd in the AM class on the medium tyre with plenty of fuel. And then it is Wade Rushton who's made a move on Kevin Cooper and put himself up into 3rd place in the AM class overall, with Kevin Cooper falling back into 10th overall and 4th in the AM class. Both of them on alternative strategy. Some mediums for Wade Rushton, hard tires for Kevin Cooper. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I thought he was about to save that. We were very just on the edge of our seat there. And I think like what you said in the Group A lobby, George, you thought Spoon Curve was one of your favorite corners in the entirety, in basically all the racetracks you know and truly love. But I feel like with Suzuka, as we see Kevin Cooper have another moment through the S curves there, that's so unfortunate there. So it just goes from bad to worse for the Hooncorp driver after what was a strong performance at Fuji. But you say Spoon Curve's your favorite corner around this track. I believe mine is actually turn 1 and 2, because if as much as Spoon Curve is hard to get right, I believe first curve and second curve is pretty much equal, because it's a very hard corner. You're coming from a very fast speed, downhill braking as well, and you're basically braking and turning at the same time. And it takes a toll on the left-hand side of the car. It's definitely an opportunity to lock your tires, to miss your braking points, and to really have an upset on the car. But thankfully for our drivers as well, they've got a bit of a headwind going into turn 1, so it makes the braking a little bit easier. You can go that little bit deeper than normal with compared to if you have a tailwind or a crosswind. So the drivers have to think about that as well, that they can just push the car to its limits. But unfortunately, with Kevin Cooper, he just pushed a little bit too much there.
Yeah, I do wonder if that's what caught Shane Attard out early on, is that initial headwind is coming into turn 1 rapidly becomes a bit of a tailwind as you exit, because it's essentially a full 180 corner to split up into a couple of parts. And that second part of the corner is so tricky, especially if you've got wind behind you, because that's where you're using the maximum grip to really turn the car in through that second part. The first part of the corner, yeah, but you just need to kind of point the car, squirt on the brakes, and then get yourself turned in. It's all about the trail braking you see there. Really nice bit of trail braking from Aiden Sampson. That's how you get the car to turn in more and more, because it's basically that's what it is, isn't it? You're turning the car in more and more as you head towards that very, very fine point. There's a little area just as you reach that second apex. We need to lift off the brake, let the car fully roll into the corner, and then push on the accelerator on the exit. So I agree, it is one of those corners. I mean, it's probably a bit foolish of me to have said that there's any one corner that's particularly my favorite, because I really do like them all.
Yeah, I think, and Suzuka circuit is like that. Because it is well renowned as a driver's circuit. It's got everything you can think of in a racing circuit. It's got S curves. It's got downhill braking. It's got braking whilst you are trying to turn at the same time. You've got very fast 90-degree corners in the Degnus. You've got a hairpin. You've got Spoon Curve, which is an off-camber corner, and it's a very tricky corner. You've got one of the fastest corner on the racetrack through 130R. And then you've got a very tight and lazy chicane in the Casio Triangle. So it's got everything. And that's the wonderful thing about Suzuka Circuit. Everything that you can think of in a driver's mind, you put it on a track, and you picture Suzuka Circuit, and it's basically the best platform to basically hone your racecraft, to learn about racing, to learn about your driving style, to learn about how to take different approaches to racing lines. Because even for elite drivers, you could see, as we saw in Group A, there was a lot of drivers making mistakes in that elite and pro lobby in Group A. So while they know the track very well compared to our Pro-Am and Am drivers, they make mistakes as well. And it's great to see that these drivers are really having a good go and really maximizing what they can 12 minutes into this session.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, do 100 laps at Suzuka. You'll learn all you need to about throttle application, control, brake application, control, trail braking. It'll teach you all that you need to know. Take all those skills to all the other tracks, and I'll tell you, you will be a better driver. I guarantee it. Especially when it comes to racecraft and things like that. It's one of those tricky things that is hard to train. With Suzuka, because there's so few opportunities, you really have to learn about taking advantage of the weaknesses of your opponent and accounting for your own weaknesses as a racing driver. So this is just why Suzuka is just brilliant. And it is a fantastic place to go racing. Fastest lap at the moment, Mark Pacheco, 2:01.447. So a couple of seconds off the fastest lap we saw from Gopi Mahindajit, which was taken away by James Lee, of course, but he was on the softs. No one on a typical strategy is going to be running the softs today. They just do not last long enough.
As we can see there, Richard Robinson has actually gone down the back of the field there, so it looks like he's made a bit of a mistake there. He's Looks like he's on the racing soft tyres, I believe. Oh no, sorry, the racing hard tyres. Apologies.
No, he's
there.
on the softs.
Oh, he is on the softs. Yeah, okay. I thought that was a little bit of a timing error on my screen there, but he is on the racing softs there. So 201.350. But I'm just trying to look back on his lap times where he made a mistake there. Lap 4, 2 minute 31.545. So must have had a spin or must have had an incident next to his name, and he's down in 15th and last place in car 20 of the Black Rose Racing Mercedes AMG. So not where we usually see you, Robbo, down in 15th and last place, and it's quite a fair way back to Blue Dog, who is the AM driver, the last of the AM drivers, in 14th place in the Lamborghini Huracan. And then we have RBR Hodges 97 in the Lightning Motorsports car 55 Audi R8, so 204.889. So it looks like he's making his first debut in the Lightning Motorsports Audi R8s for his first time out in a MotorMotion E-Series. And then we have Shane Adard, who we saw have that massive off, and he's still carrying on with damage here, George. He's sticking to plan A. He doesn't want to come into the pit lane and change his strategy, so I'll give credit to him for the Astor Racing in car 81, and he's still holding some good pace at 204 flat as good pace, and he's actually catching Kevin Cooper in 11th place as well.
Fortunately, we do know that his ultimate pace on the mediums is going to be 202s. We know how quick he can be, and yeah, real shame at the start. I am very impressed. Respect it to continue on with the strategy as it is. Could have looked at a shorter stint on the softs potentially. He was certainly in a situation to reconsider that, and that's yet another skill that is something that is tricky to train. When you have to alternate and switch your strategy up on the fly. Not the easiest thing to do. So. But at the same time, sticking to the strategy that you've got at the moment actually can be to your advantage. He's only about half a lap behind where he was. So if he continues with a good bit of pace, manages to get his fuel all the way to that halfway point, which is in about 10 minutes time, and maybe even save a bit of fuel in this situation, he could be looking at catching up a few seconds in that pit stop, and a good bit of driving. He'll be on the hard tyres, yes, at the end of this race, but a good bit of driving and stable driving could put him within earshot, certainly of the top 10.
You know, if he holds on to this strategy and he still runs to that plan A strategy that he's going to have, he can definitely get himself back inside that top pace, because we know the pace of Shane Adard, and we know that he can get himself inside that battle pack that is currently, I would believe, you know, we could see Aiden Chase there in P8, that we can also see Mitch Collin, Rob Jacobs. You know, if Shane Adard holds his head up high, he might be able to catch up to that battle pack, but he might need to do a different strategy here, George. He may need to try maybe an aggressive undercut, would you think? Maybe, but the problem is he's going to be on the hard tyres as well. So an undercut plus hard tyres, I'm not so sure if he's going to gain any more positions than that.
Yeah, and if he undercuts, he'll have to go full fuel and then really manage that. And if you do go full fuel, you've got to make sure that you can push as hard as you can in the car for the entire rest of the race, because if you can't, then those hard tires are just going to be slowing you down. That's why I feel like it might have been a more sensible strategy to try and switch onto the hards for a limited period of time, get yourself within the window where the softs are good, and then go for it at the end. But you're losing so much with the pit stop anyway, you're kind of doomed if you don't, doomed if you do. We've had a bit of an update here. Robert Rice has fallen to P5 in this race, hasn't pitted, so he's clearly had a bit of an off somewhere. Without taking any damage, though. So this has actually elevated Aiden Sampson for Diffusion Race Engineering up into P3 in the Pro-Am class, and elevated Mark Hasseldine to P4 overall and P1 still in the AM class. And the gap is getting bigger and bigger. He's just really putting the pressure on. He is, though, we have to remember, running the medium tyre, whereas those around him are running the hard tyre.
Yeah, Aiden Sampson is the first of the drivers that is on the hard tyre, and we can see there up ahead, Mark Pacheco is actually closing up on Jackson Dean as well. So over the last couple of laps, Jackson Dean has managed to pull away from Mark Pacheco, but the victor from believe was at Mount Panorama, Mark Pacheco, he's looking to capitalize, and he wants to try and make sure he resumes this battle that we saw at Mount Panorama. These two having a massive ding-dong battle in round one. It was a great spectacle to see these two go hammer and tong, side-by-side racing and hard racing amongst these two. But Mark Pacheco is really closing up on Jackson Dean in P1, and Aiden Sampson full credit to the man as well. He's going to be running a very good strategy if he can hold on to P3 and not lose too much time to the front two, because once those front two have to jump on the hard tyres and Aiden has to go on the medium tyres, watch out for that diffusion. Mercedes, he might be able to replicate what his more experienced and more faster driver did in Group A.
Exactly, and we know that Mark Hasseldine's going to be dropping off in pace. He will be on the hard tyres for the remainder of the stint. He's used about as much fuel as everyone else, so it'll be an equal pit stop. Won't be losing any in the pit stop, but he will certainly be losing a lot of time once he gets onto those hard tyres towards the end. So this is one of those things where the strategy will it often just works against us a little bit in terms of the actual order of the race. We know Mark Hasseldine will be under a lot of pressure from Robert Rice, who's running the racing medium tyre behind him, so same strategy, but very much a different category of driver here. Robert Rice in the Pro-Am class, of course, and Mark Hasseldiene in the Am class. And we know that Robert Rice has got a huge amount of pace on him. He was sitting there right in the middle between Pacheco and Sampson, which has now become quite the gap between those drivers. And so we know how quick Robert Rice can be. It was a good start from him. That is a spin by Rob Jacobs at Degna 2.
Ouch, that is very unlucky there for Rob Jacobs there. Really in that battle pack between himself, Mitch Collin and Aiden Chase, and that's a costly blow at Degna. And it's an easy corner to do, George. You go wide at Degna 1 and then you just have to pray that the car sticks onto the tarmac, because once you get on that green AstroTurf and you just clip a bit of gravel, it's game over.
Exactly right, and luckily for him, didn't get any damage on the car, which is exactly what he would have hoped for in the situation. Would have been preferring not to go for a spin, as it's cost him quite a bit in this race. Now in P8, we're on board at the moment with RPM. That's Bob Massey, who had that spin early in this race, was actually going to be battling Mark Hasseldiene. Looked like he had the pace on him too, despite being on the hard tyre, and he's still having a battle with Wade Rushton. He's currently in P9, and I believe these guys are P3 and P4 at the moment in AM class, because we have Aiden Chase, who's up there in P7. No, I could be completely wrong about this. Let's do some math on this. Mitch Collin is Pro-Am, Revs is Pro-Am, so Mark Hasseldiene leading AM class, then it is Aiden Chase P2, Rob Jacobs is Pro-Am, and then yes, P3 and P4 for Wade Rushton and Bob Massey, who are now going at it. I think there's actually been a good recovery from Bob Massey.
I was just about to make mention of that, of Bob Massey's back up into P10 after the spin at the exit of Degna 2 on the opening lap. We're on lap 11, and he's looking to put the charge on Wade Rushton. He's on hard tyres as well, so the same strategy as Aiden Simpson, as we see the lap driver of David Splint in the CP Motorsports. You don't have a Honda engine in that car, mate, so I don't know if Lamborghini owns any lawn mowing companies in Italy. Maybe they do. If they do,
as always,
we might be able to get contacts here for Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, well known as Jim's high performance lawn mowing.
Absolutely. but as we got there, as we we're about to say there before we go off track there, we got RP man in Bob Massey doing a really good job. He's on the hard tyres just like his teammates, so watch for him to come through the pack, and he's not too far off the pack of Rob Jacobs, as well as Aiden Chase and Mitch Collin as well. So watch out for him in the later stints.
Yeah, this is a lot of pressure now.
Very interesting strategy, and nearly goes for the inside move there through 200 up. That's a ballsy move for Aiden Chase to put on a move on Mitch Collin. Then that would have been so brave if he could have got that move down on the inside, but the door closed pretty quickly, and Aiden Chase had to pull out of that. So very nicely done there, nice racecraft there to not stick with that move. Otherwise, it could have been a huge contact between the two drivers.
That's right, yeah, of course, racing hard tyres for Mitch Collin. They're starting to get to the point where the crossover's happening. Aiden Chase has got a lot of pace on his car right now, and driving really, really well in P2 for AM class, and showing that he's got some stuff. Wants to show these Pro-Am drivers what he can do on the medium tyre as it stands right now. That is Mark Hasseldiene now falling behind Revs. So we've had an overtake, and Revs is revving the car, and he's on a bit of a charge back through the field now. Next in line, Aiden Sampson. So he wants that P3 back, and he's using the medium tyres to the maximum. Using the maximum tyres to the medium is not what I wanted to say, but that's what my brain was coming to the conclusion of. But yes, he's using his medium tyres really well now as Revs. He's got Mark Hasseldiene, and now Aiden Sampson not too far up the road and still on the hard tyres, of course. We are a couple of minutes away, though, from halfway distance, and this is where how much fuel you've saved and how much time you spend in the pit stop is going to become critical.
Yeah, and I believe as well, he's saved a lot more fuel than his competitors. He's on 25% fuel from what I can see. And looks like Mark Pacheco's running very similar numbers. Robert Rice is running similar numbers. Okay, never mind. I thought he was actually saved a little bit more fuel, even though he was down the pack running on the racing hard tires. If I was on the racing, if that were my case, I probably would have saved just a little bit more, maybe just short shift. You know you're going to be slower on that compound. So you're not going to race anyone in front of you. So you may as well just, you know, concede the position and just race when it's your time to shine on those racing mediums.
But you raise a very good point, though, because all the runners behind Jackson Dean have more fuel than him. So he's used more fuel in this race now as the leader of Pro-Am class and leader of the race. So it's potentially going to cost him some extra time in the pit stop. And look how close Mark Pacheco is now. I think Jackson Dean's been thinking, I've got to save a bit more fuel. I'm running way too heavy on the fuel right now, and I've just got to back off. And maybe that's helped Mark Pacheco get a little bit closer. Mark Pacheco's tires are gone, basically, but he's got more fuel on board, so that's worth a couple of seconds in the pit stop.
Yeah, and remember as well, Jackson Dean did pull away. He did pull away from Mark Pacheco at the beginning of that stint. We saw that gap grow quite a fair bit between Dean and Pacheco, but now he just decided to back off a little bit, that he knew he was using too much fuel and using too much tires, that he decided to back off a little bit, and that's why we're seeing Mark Pacheco come a little bit closer. So it could all be won in the pit stop, George. We never know, because as we say with these different strategies, it could be a fuel strategy, it could be a tires, it could be coming in halfway, it could be coming 30 minutes into the stint and going for a short stint on the mediums or the soft compounds. I mean, it'd be very brave for someone to throw on soft compound tires for the last 20 minutes or last 25 minutes. It'd be very brave for someone to do that. But if someone could do that, I mean, full credit to them, and they might give it a go. As we see Bob Massey, the driver to blink on that 25-minute mark, 25 on the hard tires, and now he's going to go 25 on the medium. So watch out for his pace, or watch him to come clawing through the field. One of the AM drivers to keep our eyes on in this MotorMotion E-Series Championship in Season 2.
Yeah, and what a shame for him with the early spin. He's done so well to drive back. He'll come out with a lot of clean air here on the racing mediums. That's only going to help him. Hodges is going to come in as well. Robinson as well on the soft tires, which are gone after very few laps. Look how dead they are. But he's got plenty of fuel on board, so this will be a relatively short stop for Robinson. He'll be able to get back out there on, I think he needs to switch to the hard tires, so I believe he'll be doing that. In the meantime, these two just getting ever closer. I get the feeling there has to be a pit stop by these two very, very soon. The question is, who's going to pull the trigger first? Jackson Dean will have the advantage. You'd think it would be, because that would be the sensible thing to do, and he can try get the overcut. Well,
he's going for the overcut.
He's going for the overcut. That is fascinating, because I don't think he's been affected that much by the dirty air, but at the same time, you'd think the undercut would be the way to go. Pacheco does come out ahead as well. Yeah. This has actually worked out really well for Pacheco.
Yeah, that's really good. I was looking at those cars coming in the pit lane thinking, oh no, he's going to get held up by lap traffic, and those drivers behind him, and Robinson and one of the Lightning Motorsports Audi R8s, if he was stuck behind them, then that's that overcut done and dusted. You won't be able to get that. But Mark Pacheco in clean air, put the foot down, son, and go for it. Send that BMW, just like your elite driver in Dan Wood. Take some advice from him. Just throw the car around the corners and try and extract as much speed as you can, because those rear tires are looking quite healthy compared to the front. So you can really maximize the rear end of that BMW if you really just start to throw through the corners on the exit, especially through Decton 2 and the hairpin. Just getting the foot down as early as you can. But I believe as well with Jackson Dean, he's also come out. I believe he's come out in P5, and he's actually behind Wade Rushton. Correct me if I'm wrong there. We might have to go back to see where Jackson Dean is. Yes, he is. He's actually behind Wade Rushton. So I wonder if the intercoms here with the team manager of Gridline Racing and Scott Taylor is going to say to Wade Rushton, hold the 100 up, so that way your teammate can come out ahead. This is going to be spicy.
This is massive. Of course, Warn Racing mediums for Wade Rushton, and not a lot of fuel, but he can run a couple more laps on the fuel he's got there. He's actually picked up a penalty, so unfortunately, any orders that he may have been given are now null and void, because he's going to serve the penalty and will be behind Jackson Dean naturally. But hard tires, of course, now for Jackson Dean. He's going to try a lunge down into the hairpin. It actually looks like he might get it done.
That's going to cost time.
It is. Well, that's true. This is actually critical in this race. Pacheco is gaining an advantage in the pit stop with more fuel, and his teammate is now actively working to help hold up Jackson Dean as much as possible. There's the inside move, though, into Spoon. This could be it, and Wade Rushton's done well to hold him off for at least a couple of quarters. He's holding on as much as he can. They're side by side.
Wow.
Okay.
Pacheco is in the pit lane right now, so he's about to come to the pit lane. There's Wade Rushton serving his penalty, so that's bye-bye to Jackson Dean. Yellow flags was waved temporarily as we see a car. That is actually Robert Rice. So Robert Rice has gone and made a massive mistake on the exit of Casio Triangle. So something massive happened to that Lamborghini Hurricane. And what has happened there? But we're going to keep our eyes on Mark Pacheco. He's put the fuel in the car. Where is Jackson Dean? He's coming onto the pit straight right now. And the fuel is going up between the two drivers. There's a full tank of fuel. Jackson Dean's about to come out. Where is he? He's ahead of Mark Pacheco. And I'm wondering, George, is this a mistake here by Gridline Racing putting in a full tank of fuel? Or is this a strategy where Mark Pacheco can go, you know what? I'm going to send this thing to the moon. And I want to try and get fastest lap. And I want to try and get this victory here at Suzuka.
Wow, that is a huge either mistake or a massive strategy win there for Mark Pacheco. 100 liters on board, so he went maximum fuel, and this could be fascinating. We do know that he was better on the fuel than Jackson Dean, so he should have only needed 80% of fuel on max, and if that's 20 liters, that's a huge amount of time saved. That's 3 or 4 seconds. He'd be ahead.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. There's something going on with the headquarters. Obviously, we know Ando Scott was part of Gridline Racing camp before he had to suddenly depart the team due to some work commitments there. But something has gone wrong with the calculation at Gridline Racing, and Hassel One Motorsport, despite the efforts of Wade Rushton trying to hold up Jackson Dean, and that actually helped Mark Pacheco, because Mark Pacheco probably needed to put probably 85 to 80% of fuel, and you're right there. That's a critical mistake there, and that could prove costly at the end of this race with less than 20 minutes to go.
Yep, and of course with the overcut would have had 1 lap fresher tires as well. So it was all in Mark Pacheco's ball game, but he's maybe thrown away an opportunity to put the pressure on Jackson Dean. Jackson Dean will be stoked with what he's seen there. Of course, would not be aware of the fuel numbers on board Gridline Racing, so would have thought it was even Stevens. Probably thinks Pacheco's got about the same amount of fuel on board as him. It does make me wonder if Jackson may have to look after his fuel a little bit in this race. 19 minutes to go, though, and they made it all the way to 28 minutes through this race, and was relatively okay on fuel. Wade Rushton, of course, now pitting, has to pit. And that's a couple of seconds, so 3 or 4 seconds of gap there. It's exactly the amount of fuel that he put on what we believe is extra. So he's got to be now 3 or 4 seconds faster in the next 19 minutes than Jackson Dean, or it's a complete waste. And if we get to the end of this race, Nick, and we see that there's 10 liters of fuel still on board Mark Pacheco's car, I mean, they're going to have to ask themselves some questions at Gridline Racing.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like they're just crunching some of the numbers wrong there. We saw that a couple of moments and a couple of strategy errors in the Group A lobby with Dan Wood. Unfortunately, with Glenn Mead managed to take the victory in the pro class with a brilliant strategy call from hard tires to racing mediums. But what we're seeing here with now Wade Rushton coming into the pit lane, he's well outside the top 10 now. But with Mark Pacheco, who's looking to be the closest competitor to Jackson Dean's quest to take his first victory in the Pro-Am class, I just don't know, because if, like you said, it could happen anyway. Maybe Jackson Dean may be underfueled. Maybe Mark Pacheco got his numbers right. We don't know yet. It's less than 18 minutes to go. In 18 minutes time, we're going to find out who made the right strategy call. And if it's Jackson Dean with the lower fuel numbers, credit to him. If it's Mark Pacheco and the bold strategy of putting a full tank of fuel, then good on him as well, because this race is going to throw a spanner in the works with both Aiden Chase leading the race temporarily, the leader of AM class, who has to come into the pit lane. I did see his tyres were absolutely red, but with 17 minutes to go, this might throw a strategy for you, George. Here, we always throw it to our pit lane reporters in Jeff Bruin and Ando Scott, but we don't have any pit reporters here tonight for the Pro-Am and the AM class. If I was Aiden Chase, if you were Aiden Chase, would you throw in a set of soft tyres?
Oh, that's a great question. And yeah, the guessing game continues in the commentary box without our esteemed analytics team. I think it might be worth a shot, but the problem is the pit stop length here. Like it's short enough, but you're still losing a lot of time, and it's not easy to get out of that pit lane and then into turn one, especially with the fast car coming on the outside. I'm not sure if it's worth it. I'm really not sure.
You have to look at where the pack is at the moment. You can see Aiden Chase is coming through the S section right now. Jackson Dean, Mark Pacheco right behind, and then you've got this gaggle of cars here, which has been led by Aiden Sampson, who is now on the racing medium. So watch him, see if he can come through. He's actually made a good gain on Mark Hasseldine, so the alternate strategy working very well for Aiden Sampson. Then you've got Mark Hasseldine and Rob Jacobs right behind. And then you've got the next gaggle of cars there in Robert Rice, Renegade in Kevin Cooper, Mitch Collin, and rounding up the top 10, I believe, is going to be is actually the other diffusion driver in Bob Massey. Where does Aiden Chase fit into all of this? Does he fit into that gap there between the cars, between that first pack of cars and the second pack? I'm not so sure, because it can be close, but if he throws on a soft tyres, he needs to make that soft tyre work.
Well, that's exactly it, yeah. And you don't have a lot of time on the softs to make it work. So it's that high risk, high reward strategy, isn't it? Because if you do make it work, boy, oh boy, you could really be in a good situation. It's the same thing with what we've seen with Mark Pacheco there. It's sort of high risk, high reward is what I'm assuming the strategy call was for them. They're going, well, if we do have more fuel, we can go harder, longer, faster, etc. than Jackson Dean. We think we've got the pace to do it. So high risk, high reward, but they could have gone with a more conservative strategy. That was a car going very sideways. That was very close for Aiden Sampson. Well, that would be an automatic reason to pit onto the softs if you have an accident with another driver. Yeah, but Blue Dog for CP Motorsports having yet another race to forget, sadly.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not the race for him. And there goes Aiden Chase into the pit lane, 1% of fuel. And I'm going to give him credit there. 35 minutes on a medium tire.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's the thing as well. There, okay. Well, that eliminates my theory. Then he's on the mediums. He wasn't on the hards, so he has to run the hards. So that throws my strategy down the drain. Unfortunately, there. So if it was on the hards, it could have been a different story. But we only just see the graphics now that he's on the racing medium. So discard that, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll throw that underneath the rug, and we will make sure that never gets brought up again.
we will indeed, yeah. It's one of those forgive and forget moments, ladies and gentlemen. You have to remember our analytics team not with us to correct us on all this stuff, so we only realised this in time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just proving that we're nothing without our analytics team. There we go. No, I'm not going to admit to that. In the meantime, it's 202.8 for Jackson Dean on that last lap. Mark Pacheco at 202.3. So look at the time it's cut out. It's actually working in the favor of Mark Pacheco right now.
It is, actually.
Maybe this has actually gone quite well. So what is it, 60% of fuel for Jackson Dean right now, and that's over 75% for Pacheco. Clearly there's fuel saving going on for Jackson Dean right now.
Well, it looks like, you have a little bit more data on your end of your screen there, so I wonder if he's actually really maximizing and capitalizing on the full revs of that BMW, because to extract the power of this beast of an M6, you really need to rev the guts out of this BMW and really maximize the horsepower, the maximum horsepower you get from this car. So whether Jackson Dean is actually short shifting just a little bit, I can actually see there he's actually short shifting the car quite a fair bit. And if we look on board with Mark Pacheco, I want to see what his onboard is doing with this car. If he's actually redlining the car, yes, he is. He's actually going a little bit more on the revs there. So that's where the extra fuel comes in hand with Mark Pacheco compared to Jackson Dean's theory on when it comes to the fuel numbers. So strap yourself in, ladies and gentlemen. Less than 13 minutes to go. This is why we always say Group B lobby and the Pro-Am and AM divisions always is the best on the MotorMotion E-Series calendar. It's because you're getting a good taste of what it's going to be with less than 13 minutes to go. It is the battle between Jackson Dean, Mark Pacheco, Aiden Sampson in third place, while we have the leaders of the AM class with Mark Hasseldine, Aiden Chase, and RPM in Bob Massey, rounding up in 8th place. And full credit to Bob Massey as well, 8th place. Wow, what a recovery drive, and on medium tyres as well. So watch him if he can start to close up on Robert Rice in 7th place.
Yeah, and extra points as well on offer if you can keep Mitch Collin behind him. Because, of course, if you are AM class or if you're the lower division and you finish up ahead of any of the higher division classes in your group, you do get extra points for that. So this is worth extra points for Bob Massey. It's not a good amount of racing mediums, so they will last him all the way. So just got to protect them at the moment. The interesting thing that I saw is that the racing hards for Aiden Chase with Revs behind him. Revs will probably get him at some point here, but Mark Hasseldine is actually not that far up the road, also on the racing hards, and looks like Chase has got a little bit less fuel, but more tires. This just makes me wonder if there's maybe a little bit of an action that could be happening here between Aiden Chase and Mark Hasseldine. Lap times between the two are pretty consistent if we, that's before Aiden Chase came into the pit stop, but he saved a lot of time running long.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, less fuel in the car. The car's going to handle a little bit nicer, but unfortunately as well, I think it's unfortunately the strategy hasn't really worked for Aiden Chase there. If we were actually thinking that he was on the hard tires, it would have been an absolute masterclass there for Aiden Chase. But hard tires and a low tank of fuel, while you've got drivers behind on medium tires and the already heated tires on their cars, you watch out for him. He's going to probably go from P6, and he could definitely drop down to as low as P10 at the end of it, or behind Mitch Collin in 9th place.
It's on at the top. Gridline versus Hassel 1, and this is going to be close as Pacheco has been to Jackson Dean since the beginning of this race. And this is boiling down to something very, very special. Look at this. There's overtaking opportunities in Mark Pacheco's future. And Jackson Dean now has got to do a lot of work to hold on. It was a 203.4 for Jackson Dean, a 203.2 for Pacheco. So he's got the pace. He's revving up the car. And what a battle we have on here. There's a battle boiling and getting itself prepared down in AM class for that P1 spot. Mark Hasseldine still holding on to that at the moment, and Revs looking to get involved and get past those two, take a few points back away from those AM class drivers in Aiden Chase and Mark Hasseldine. But this is the battle we're focused on right now. It is the green highlighted GLR car of Mark Pacheco in one of the in a situation that's essentially reversed from what we've seen at Bathurst, when Jackson Dean was quite dominant at Bathurst, but Pacheco ended up getting the good strategy in the pit stop. Jackson Dean, of course, having a bit of a problem into the pit stop as well, managing not to refuel the car properly. But it's good to see that these two are on relatively equal pace in the strategy game, very much afoot. Keep an eye as we head through Spoon. Jackson Dean still holding on at the moment. Let's do a full run through the grid from the bottom up. Got Blue Dog here. Oh, we've caught him at the wrong moment. So sorry about that. The number 6 CP Motorsports driver having a horrible day out, unfortunately. Then Hodges for Lightning Motorsport in AM class. And Robinson, also a day to forget for him in Pro Am class. But yeah, he's run the softs. He's had a bit of an issue at the beginning of the race, which hasn't helped him out. Then Kevin Cooper for Uncorp Esports, the M-Class driver for that team. Then Wade Rushton. It looks like he's fallen down a little bit. He's got damage. So Wade Rushton has had a problem in this race. Then Shane Attard on Racing Softs, trying to make up some positions. 8 minutes left in this race. They will just last out to the end, but it's going to be very dicey for Shane Attard. He's trying to chase after Mitch Collin, who's still got Revs in front of him. Then it's Chase and then Bob Massey. So we've got a four-way battle brewing here. Massively at the moment. This is incredible stuff between these four drivers. Of course, Bob Massey wants to stay ahead of Aiden Chase because that's for the AM class P2. Both of them trying to chase down Mark Hasseldine, and they got Revs and Mitch Collin who just want to get ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chase is, look at this battle pack here. RPM and Bob Massey up to 6 players. What a recovery drive it's been for the man. What could have been for RPM to have a really good go at the end victory here, where we have Mark Hasseldine pretty much looks like he's settling in for the checkered flag until the checkered flag at the end of this race. But RPM a very good job and a very well-deserved recovery drive there from what was an unfortunate spin at the end of Deckman 2. And we can just see there with Aiden Chase, he's really struggling to get those tyres up to temperature. Robert Rice and Mitch Collin right behind there on the medium tyres, ready to pounce and ready to give it a go. I believe Robert Rice as well, he's on the hard tyres as well.
Correct. Yep, correct.
He's giving Aiden Chase the big hurry up. But he's trying to give him hurry up as he's trying to get past him as soon as he can, because he knows Mitch Collin is right behind there, and they're both fighting for position in class.
Yeah, exactly. And what a great four-way battle. Two AM class drivers desperately trying to hold on from two Pro Am drivers who are looking very racy at the end of this 50-minute race. We've got about 6.5 minutes left remaining. So that's going to be about 3 or 4 laps for Jackson Dean to hold off Mark Pacheco, and for these two to try and find a way past Aiden Chase and maybe catch up to Bob Massey. Revs is looking for a move. It's the inside, it's the outside, it's everywhere, but gets nowhere. Crikey. Great battle.
He's looking to try and make that move, and watch for that Lamborghini's top end compared to the Porsches. He's going to throw it up 130R. Surely not. That's a bold move by Robert Rice, and he's done it. What a move that was for the CP Motorsports driver, car 36, and Robert Rice gets the move done. Unfortunately, it looks like Aiden Chase has gone spinning around on the exit of 130R. Well, at least he's dropped down to P9, and that's allowed Mitch Collin to come through. But what a move by Robert Rice there.
Stunning work by the CP Motorsports driver, and now it's on at the top. Through Degner 1 we go, and it's BMW versus BMW. Jackson Dean still holding on to the top spot. And yeah, I have to agree with you there, Nick. On the inside of 130R, it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of confidence in what the car's going to do. And Robert Rice gets it all right. Very Fernando Alonso-esque move that we saw there done. Nonetheless, Jackson Dean, he's got a really good ability to get the run out of those lower speed corners, but Pacheco just reels him back in through the straights. He's got that top speed. He can rev out the car. He's just got so much pace compared to top speed compared to Jackson Dean's BMW at the moment with the fuel saving he's had to do. Still 50% of fuel on board for Pacheco, but there's no way he's using all of that in 5 minutes. So it comes back to the same thing we were talking about before. Why, oh why, did they refuel the car to 100%?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a costly mistake there. And yeah, apologies there on the microphone and there, ladies and gentlemen. Still having a couple of technical difficulties on my end there, but yeah, you mentioned
Sorry, Nick, we're having more problems than usual with your mic right now. Unfortunately, it's very dropping in, very dropping out. So we'll take a moment and let you try and get that sorted. And in the meantime, we will continue to focus in on the race. And that was a blue flag, of course, so Blue Dog moving out of the way. Flash the lights from Jackson Dean as well, just reminding him that he needs to. But I have to give respect to Blue Dog for CP Motorsports. He's done very, very well to move out of the way of the other competitors on field, so my hat's off. I love to see good blue flag etiquette, and Blue Dog admittedly doesn't have a huge amount of pace at the moment in the Lamborghini. We hope he finds his feet and finds a bit of pace out on track as soon as he can. He's a developing driver for CP Motorsports, and yeah, Blue Dog is one that we're keeping our eye on in AM class, because I think he's got a lot of potential, but certainly his race etiquette is very much up there. The battle continues as we head through the hairpin, and Nick returns. Maybe. Apologies, of course, for the technical difficulties we are having. So that does mean Nick Patasso is just having a few issues with the microphone. We'll have to find the budget to get the secondary headset in the commentary box up to scratch, because it just does seem to be failing us occasionally. But nonetheless, he will be back in short order. Let's take a very quick look around the grid while Jackson Dean tries to put a little bit of distance between him and Pacheco. Aiden Sampson holding on from Rob Jacobs, and the battle is on actually now for P3 in this race. We've got two battles to focus on, P1, P2, and P3 and P4. Aiden Sampson and Rob Jacobs going for it, both on the medium strategies. Rob Jacobs a lot less fuel on board though. Looks like he's got that absolutely right with the strategy, and he's pushing his Audi as hard as it can go.
Oh, the Audi, it can really push itself on a low tank of fuel, and a little bit of worn tyres, and watch for that slippery Audi to come through. And Rob Jacobs, but slippery as it may be, he nearly loses the car on the exit of 130R and has to save himself and compose himself. He's just about to clock over 2 minutes to go, so he's going to have 2 more laps of rep to try and get P3 and get onto the podium. for Pro-Am. But what I was just about to say before I had to dock off quickly there, but Mark Pacheco and Jackson Dean has got less than 25%, and Mark Pacheco has got more than 25%. So it's a fuel number. Mark Pacheco has to do it on the track here, George. But the problem is you can't overtake with Suzuka. It's one of the hardest tracks to overtake because it's so narrow and it's so technical that it becomes virtually impossible if you are matching each other with pace, whether if you're matching each other in lap time with race pace, whether it was in qualifying or, anything. This track provides the goods, and it provides the good of driver etiquette and driver skills. But putting that to skills and trying to overtake is virtually impossible. But if Mark Pacheco can do it, it has to be done very soon. And he's getting an opportunity right now.
Oh, wow. Jackson Dean had to go defensive there to cover off what was a charging Mark Pacheco right in behind him. I think that Jackson Dean might have just reached the threshold. He was obviously fuel saving in the first bit of this last stint of his, but I don't think that might not be as much the case now. I think he's lifting and coasting a little bit into the corners, trying to keep that fuel all the way to the end. But this is the penultimate lap. He's got enough fuel to make it to the end. He can go hammer and tong now with that BMW. He doesn't need to reserve his fuel at all. Pacheco now is in the hot seat, and he's going to have to make something happen. Focus on the exit at Casio Triangle. He's got to get something done, and this will be the last time they go down the main pit straight after a few quarters. Oh, is it going to be a move, a send down the inside? He's tried it. Jackson Dean already turning into the braking zone, so nothing he can do.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Oh my God, strap yourself in, ladies and gentlemen. One lap to go between the top step of the podium between Jackson Dean and Mark Pacheco. Jackson Dean going defensive, Mark Pacheco getting the clear air that he needs, but we don't want to keep our eyes away from the battle for P3 because it's close as it is. Aiden Sampson and Rob Jacobs, but it is the battle of the BMWs, the German brand going hammer and tong. As we see, they've actually crossed the start finish line. It is Aiden Sampson that has just gotten ahead of Rob Jacobs, so everyone else is about to cross the start finish line. George, I'll tell you what, it's only 2 cars left that is battling it out for P1, and this is the battle that we want to see. I am intrigued.
Oh, it's a showcase. It's a showcase of P1 versus P2. Jackson Dean holding on. He's got enough fuel. Wiggle there on the exit of Dunlop. This could be an opportunity for Pacheco. Degner 1, no, defensive line for Jackson Dean. There's nowhere to go. There's a bit of touch between the 2 cars.
Oh, that's a silly move.
Oh, it's an unfortunate one there. And Jackson Dean had the right to the corner, so Pacheco was forced very, very wide. Probably should have backed out of it, but didn't. Wants to take the opportunity if he can find it. Jackson Dean is just all over the racing line, though. He can't not be. He has to be everywhere because otherwise Pacheco is going to send it. And I think now Pacheco's far enough back. What's he going to do? Where's he going to do it now?
Yeah. Well, it needs to happen right now. So if Jackson Dean has a really bad run through Spoon Curve, that's going to be the last opportunity for Mark Pacheco. He needs to get the perfect exit out of Spoon Curve, and I don't believe he's got that perfect exit. They both hit their apexes. They both get out of the corners strong, but it's not enough for Mark Pacheco as he's coming down towards the back straight through 130R. Pluck through the gears, just rev the hell out of that BMW. The slipstream is quite strong between the BMWs. Try to keep it flat here as much as you can. Try to go full send. Mark Pacheco has done that. Nearly runs it wide through 130R. Deep on the brakes does Mark Pacheco go, but it's not going to be enough as they go through Casio Triangle for the last time. Throwing the car through Casio, but not enough. It is Jackson Dean taking his first victory, and the lights are flashing. Take a bow, Jackson Dean and Mark Pacheco. What a great battle you have displayed for us here tonight. And what a race that was to call here. Yet again, Group B Pro-Am and the Am class showing what they've got and showing their prowess in this division. And it is Jackson Dean taking that lights to checkered flag. He did it the hard way, but he takes it nonetheless with P1 next to his name and Hassel1 getting the double with Jackson Dean and Mark Hasseldine getting the victory in both their respective classes. That's 3 in a row for Mark Hasseldine, but that is Jackson Dean's first victory in MotorMotion E-Series for the GT3 Championship, with Mark Pacheco rounding up in P2 and Aiden Sampson just holding off a fast Rob Jacobs in the Hoon Corp Esports Audi R8 in 4th place, and then Fulksy in P6 as well, and Robert Rice rounding up in 7th place.
What a race. P8 goes to Mitch. Yeah, P8 goes to Mitch Collin. Aiden Chase in P9, unfortunately, with that spin at the end of the race. Kevin Cooper, P10. Wade Rushton, P11 for Gridline Racing. P12 to Shane Attard, who had a shocker today. Richard Robertson, a shocker for him as well, P13. Mark Hogan on debut for Lightning Motorsport in P14, picks up 16 points. Graham Splint in P15 for CP Motorsports, having some really good blue flag etiquette, but not quite enough pace to find his way up the grid at all today in AM class course. And then Jack Finch, DNS today, unfortunately, for Black Rose Racing. A shame to see it, that is for sure. We are going to need a little bit of a break after that race. Once again, Pro-Am and Am putting on a show. It's almost a shame that we didn't have P3 and P4 battling it to the end of the final lap as well. They came across the line just before just after the timer had a lapse of 50 minutes, but that's a well-deserved victory in P3 for Aiden Sampson. Jackson Dean, I didn't think he was going to do it, honestly, and then Mark Pacheco with the mistake in the pit stop. It came down to refueling in the pit stop for Mark Pacheco and Gridline Racing.
Absolutely, and look at how much fuel he got in. Obviously, as our viewers look back at the stream, and we'll look back in the commentary box as well, as how much fuel he had left in the car compared to Jackson Dean. Jackson Dean perfected that, got that fuel to perfection, while unfortunately Mark Pacheco's fuel liner has put the refueling was a bit too much, or not a bit too much, a lot in that Gridline Racing. So while they had some up and down seasons in 2024 in the group and the GT3 Championship, it's not really been consistent with Gridline Racing. Yes, they've had victories with Dan Wood and Glenn Mead recently at Suzuka in Group A, but they're not getting consistent. Mark Pacheco finishes in P2, and Wade Rushton finishes outside the top 10 as well. So Group B is really struggling with the Gridline drivers to try and find that strategy, while Mark Pacheco had all the confidence in the world at Bathurst. Started to slip away a little bit, just a couple little mistakes falling his way, and that's what cost him the victory here tonight. That refueling has definitely cost him. He had the fuel advantage. He must have known he had the fuel advantage. His team advantage, don't put more fuel in the car, and all of a sudden they just said, I want more fuel.
Yep,
exactly. I want to send this car. I want to go for it.
Yep, exactly. And we do have a little screenshot here for everyone to see. So let's have a little look. And that is 25 liters of fuel on board Mark Pacheco's car at the end of this race. And that is gutting to see, because that is so... Let me double check this, Nick, to make sure I'm absolutely right. But if we do the math here, that is a refueling rate here of... where is it? On 4 liters a second. So that's 5 seconds plus for Mark Pacheco, and he would have easily been ahead of Jackson Dean by 4 or 5 seconds, and that is a real shame for Mark Pacheco there, and in some ways a little bit lucky for Jackson Dean too.
Yeah, absolutely. He can definitely count his lucky stars, Jackson Dean. I think he knew he probably wasn't the fastest on the racetrack. I think overall race pace through qualifying, he showed some good pace ahead of Mark Pacheco, but I think race pace definitely went to the hand of Mark Pacheco. But 5 seconds extra in the pit lane, that is a lot, especially around Suzuka. It is a lot around there. So a lot of work to do for Gridline Racing, but it is still Party Central at Hassel One Motorsports, as we're about to go join them very shortly. But before we get to that, we are going to start getting into our driver of the day. So as you always throw it to me, George, it's my turn to throw it towards you for the driver of the day there. But it's all about dissecting, and we're going to definitely talk about this at the end of the stream. But it's going to be hard to choose a driver of the day here, because there's a lot of great drives, a lot of strategies, a lot of blunders, a lot of surprise packages. But who do you think is going to be worthy of your driver of the day vote?
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick has been waiting 3 rounds for me to put myself in a position to be thrown under the bus. So fair game to him. The game is afoot between us throwing each other under the bus for driver of the day. For me, it's Bob Massey, 100%. You can make a mistake like he did early on very easily. It's easy to do, especially at Degner's. That's just what happens. The fact that he's driven back to P2 in AM class and P6 overall, super impressive drive. I'm really, really impressed with that. No mistake on the strategy there. He's made overtakes when he's needed to. He's had the pace as well. So everything's there, for a great drive. If he had not had that spin, I think Mark Hasseldean would not be on the top spot of AM class today. I really think that. So Bob Massey, hats off to him. Driver of the day for me, 100%.
Ooh, okay, yeah, you know what? I tend to agree with you there, and I think definitely Bob Massey, without that spin, he dropped down to 15th and last place as well, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the first lap. So that's a recovery drive and a half, 15th to 6, after what was a good qualifying for the Diffusion Race Engineering. So basically, in theory, Diffusion Race Engineering have had a very good round overall here at Suzuka, but I totally am going to agree with you 100%. Bob Massey is my driver of the day as well. Yep, exactly what you said. From 15th to 6th place, didn't give up. Went with his plan A strategy, and yeah, he absolutely delivered absolutely delivered never give up attitude, and he didn't give up at all. He went his absolute best, and he really wanted to make sure and showcase what he's capable of in this AM Championship, and he displayed that with a recovery drive and a half. So well done, Bob.
Absolutely. 2 votes. 2 votes for Bob. So chat, let us know who your driver of the day is going to be.
Driver of the day.
Yep, exactly. Chat, let us know exactly who your driver of the day is going to be. I have to admit, honorable mentions, though, for Jackson Dean and Aiden Sampson and Rob Jacobs. I think they did extremely well, and Mark Hasseldean as well. It was a consistent drive, and so some really good drives overall. I do skip there, Mark Pacheco. I just, it's nothing against the driver, nothing against the team. It's such a lost opportunity, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So very unlucky there, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the next round at Interlagos. So I'm very keen to see what happens the next time out at Interlagos with these guys, as we are about to get towards our standings here for the Pro-Am. So Jackson Dean now leads ahead of Rob Jacobs. Mark Pacheco, slowly he's working his way up towards the front there, but he definitely needed those extra points after today's events. So unfortunately him down in P3, 2 points behind Rob Jacobs, and a little bit quiet there on Rob Jacobs and finishing P4, and Aiden Sampson getting some handy points for the Diffusion Race Engineering. And then we have Mitch Collin, Robert Rice, Richard Robinson, and Shane Addard rounding up the end of our Pro-Am field in this championship. So it's close. I feel like what we're seeing in Pro-Am is going to be probably one of the best seasons, one of the best divisions we're going to have this, and I believe the Pro class as well. We're going to see a lot of great battling here, but Pro-Am is definitely one I'm going to keep on, because look at those points, George, between all of them. Anyone can take that P1.
That's right. It's super, super close. Only 11 points. That's really nothing in the context of this championship. 7 races to go after this as well. Let's take a look at AM class standings. Mark Hasseldean, not quite as close here. 141 points for him, 99 for Kevin Cooper, and then Aiden Chase in P3, Troy Britnell P4, Bob Massey in P5. If he continues a good run of form, Bob Massey's got a chance to elevate himself up above those drivers above him at the moment. Wade Rushton P6, Graham Splint P7, and Jack Finch on the board now with 16 points, but P8 for him overall. But yeah, Mark Hasseldean running away with things in AM class, and there's definitely going to be some chat in the paddock about some of the results that he's had so far. Nonetheless, there's a very stacked Pro-Am grid ahead of him as well, so it's a tricky thing to try and calculate. Nonetheless, Mark Hasseldean running away with things in AM class. Let's take a look at team standings now. And Hassel One Motorsports, speaking of running away with things, 375 points. Nick, this is something you and me got familiar with seeing in TCR when we saw me, Cougar Driver Development, just driving away with all the points and developing a great lead for themselves. Then, of course, Hooncorp Esports in P2, 331 points, and Gridline Racing starting to make that charge back. Have got themselves up ahead of Diffusion Race Engineering now, who slipped back to P4, but only by 1 point. Then there's a 2-point gap to Black Rose Racing. CP Motorsports in P6 on 266 points. Then Lightning Motorsports only 5 points behind them, and then Asta Racing. So it is a bit of a gap at the top, but it's relatively close between P3 and P8. Lots of stuff to happen still in the team standings in the rest of the season.
Yeah, I was about to say that between 3rd and 8th place is just not even like 30 points. It's less than 30 points covering 3rd and 8th place. So it's absolutely tight in that battle for P3. I feel like both House P3 down to P8 is going to be really close, but Gridline really need to make sure they get themselves, at least all their drivers on the grid, as well as trying to capitalize on those results as much as possible, because if they don't, they're going to really fall down that order, and it could come within a heartbeat, George, because the gaps between those 6 teams respectively, it can change next round.
Exactly right. It is close as anything. And yeah, that is going to conclude our round 3 coverage here at MotorMotion E-Series for the Player 1 Sim Gear GT3 Championship. Suzuka giving us a lot of action. And that means that we have a lot to look forward to in the next round, which will be Interlagos. Of course, that'll be broadcast next week. So we'll see you back same time, same place for Interlagos round 4. The racing mediums are going to become very, very important. We don't know what the weather's doing, because in the Formula 1, it's been throwing a few curveballs one way or the other for those who have watched sprint qualifying. And by the time this is broadcast, probably done with the race. Nonetheless, what an exciting round. And Nick, thank you again for being in the commentary box. Some final comments from you, and then we will round out round 3's coverage. And we have microphone issues at the best of times. There we go.
Well, I hope. Well, I was about to say, when you're about to tell me about my final comments, I was thinking, well, hopefully I don't have any microphone issues next time round. So I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for my technical difficulties. But yeah, whilst I'll try to get it in before I have more technicalities, what an event it was. Suzuka throws up the best racing possible. We saw it at Bathurst, we saw it at Fuji, and Suzuka, I think, is slowly starting to come up my ladder of favorite tracks so far in this MotorMotion E-Series Championship. But we are heading towards South America now, towards Brazil, the heartland of racing in Brazil, and we cannot wait to see these GT3 cars fang it around Interlagos. A brilliant circuit, a brilliant track for racing and overtaking. A lot of strategy is going to be involved in that race, and I really look forward to seeing what's going to happen there in all divisions. Actually, will we see another 4th victor in Group A lobby? Because as we were looking through the background, it is 3 different winners in 3 different rounds for the both categories in both Elite and Pro-Am. And as well in the Pro-Am, also in the Elite and Pro class, my apologies there. And in the Pro-Am, this is the 3rd victor as well. So we could be on for a run here for 4 different winners in the first 4 rounds, George. And maybe a lot of questions are going to be asked and unanswered and asked about when it comes to the AM division and what is going on in the Hasselblad Motorsport. Is Mark Hasseldean the strongest driver in that AM field, or are we seeing a little bit of competition now slowly starting to brew with Bob Massey and Aiden Chase starting to put their names in the hat? Time will tell, but until then, we'll find out next time when we go racing at Interlagos.
Exactly right. Big thanks to yourself, Nick Bautasso, as always. We'll try and get the funds together for a new headset here in the commentary box for both of us, actually. Why not? We'll upgrade both of them. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in to tonight's broadcast here at MotorMotion E-Series. My name is George Cooke, joined by Nick Bautasso and Jeff Bruin earlier on in the stream before he had to head out. But we are privileged to bring you the coverage, and we will be back next week for round 4 at Interlagos. So that was the Player 1 Sim Gear GT3 Championship, Season 2, Round 3. We'll catch you for the next one. Take it easy, have a great time out there, and we will see you next week. And it is lights out, and away we go here at cloudy Nürburgring GP. Everyone being cautious, they know it's a long race. Still 21 laps to go. Where we just started the race, and already we're seeing so much action on track.